You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of In the Bag, Night at the Museum. No, see, like that's the thing about an education, is that education allows you to build your own high ground. I'm in a weird mood, which I think is so good for what we're about to do.
Jesus. A lot of thoughts going on.
Yeah. Part of it is like I'm excited to share the story, and part of me is also excited to get past the story because I'm so in this story now that it's like tough to hold all the information without telling somebody at this point.
Yeah, I feel that.
We'll have fun.
Thanks, friend.
Like the hat.
Thank you. I wore it strategically today so I could talk about it. Have we talked about it on Patreon yet?
I gave it to you on air.
Right, but for Patreon or for a regular episode?
For regular.
I don't think I wore it that episode though, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay, cool. Real concerning. More kind of Swiss cheese
So when
up
do
here, but
I
more
pull the plug on you?
Jarlsberg. That's actually a great question. A lot earlier than you think it is.
Okay.
If I'm losing it mentally. Physically, if I have to sit for the rest of my life, I can make peace with that. But mentally, once I start going, even if I can run marathons.
See, here's the thing: is I know you're gonna gaslight me though.
About what?
About you. I hate it. I'm never pulling the plug. You're gonna live forever. Fuck
Here's the
you.
thing. I am actually kind of pretty sure I'm gonna live forever, which is why I need to really treat my nieces and nephews well.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or the cats that we get that are gonna be sentient by the time we're 70. You know, they
That would be
found a
ideal.
cure for cat kidney disease, which is like usually the #1 killer for cats, and now they think some cats might be able to live to age 30.
What?
I saw that as an article that I then did not investigate, but I remember it because a person was like, imagine getting a cat being like, I'm signing up for like 15, 20 years. And then it was like, surprise! Guess who's going to be around for the next couple chapters of your life?
That's a lifelong partner now.
It is a lifelong partner, which is why I refuse to get a parrot.
Yeah. I knew at, I think, like 16, if I'm getting a parrot, I gotta get it now.
Yeah. And like kind of commit to ever for it. Or else your loved ones will have to travel
Deal
to a
with the
tropical destination in the weeks after your death and come back with one less passenger. Fun story about parrots, actually, since we're on the topic. When we were children, driving home from some kind of holiday event, okay? It's me, my brother, me and my sister, my parents, and my grandfather on my dad's side of the family. Kind of the creature from the Blue Lagoon situation going over there. Kind of a really kind of shrouded past that we didn't get to learn a lot about. Really fun. Anyways, I'm just saying I had a weird relationship with that grandpa my entire life.
No, I mean, yeah.
And when I was 10 or 11, Griffin was like, I think I want a parrot. And I was like, you don't want a parrot. Those things live to be like 100.
Forever.
Who wants something that old sticking around?
Oh my God.
Listen, I've always been precocious. I haven't always been...
Smart?
I love how you say that as like something falls down upstairs.
Well, it's not me, it's him.
It's Casey.
So, yeah. Duh. Hello? Welcome to our show. I'm probably going to cut that in somewhere around the talk of the cat. I don't know.
As we talk about parrots and cats and living forever.
Okay. Here is the note.
Oh, yay.
from This, if you're not on the YouTube, I'm holding a pillow. Grant also got one from our dear friend.
But if I sit on it, I will like crush it. And that's my truth. So mine is by my shoes, but I'll hold up and model
A
Maya's.
model of it. This is from our friend Kelsey.
Sorry, they're super cool. There's a bunch of enthusiasm. I'm just trying not to break Maya's flow right now.
Oh, yeah. No, it just says, Secret Tunnel!
It's also a beautiful graphic. It was printed or screen printed really, really well. And it like has like the right kind of like, you know, it's not like a stiff pillow where you're like, oh, my neck's gonna crack. But it's like not, what I'm trying to say is it's like a nice couch pillow. It's so fun.
I'm very excited.
It makes you want to sing.
Secret Tunnel!
And tell our listeners about, tell our listeners about the pillow. I had a thought, but
Oh, it says Secret Tunnel, and I'm obsessed with it. And I went to go pick it up from the PO box, and I had to like go to the front counter for them to give it to me. And he brought it out, and I genuinely was not expecting a package as big as this was. And I went, holy shit, in the middle of a UPS. I just realized I had not read the note that came with it in our email, so he's reading that now. It's very sweet.
It actually is really sweet. And I still think you and I are both like shocked people listen, and then also shocked people are like, those people that I listen to, I'm going to send them something. That's so beyond. Oh, actually, I'm going to cut in. Oh, sorry, I know that's unusual.
You cut in on yourself.
I know, but I'm going to change the topic a little bit. It was my birthday this last weekend, and I had a lovely time, and very briefly, an intensely awkward time. I know I have this reputation of being like cool, mysterious, aloof. But personally...
Not one person who knows you in real life believes that.
Okay, so maybe I like attention. But like usually I like attention when like I have chosen the attention. When I'm like, I have a funny story I think you all are going to enjoy. Or like,
great, you
here's
just
a funny
cut in on
remark.
yourself.
Yeah, I know. I had a funny story I think y'all were going to enjoy. That's what I just said. Or like if I look really good. What I don't always love
or
is...
if the weather's above 70, below 70.
No, honestly, like low 60s is such a good time for a crew neck. But anyways, attention that at times makes me feel really uncomfortable is when it's not attention I have chosen and it is nothing but pure love and joy. So when Maya and friends emerged from my guest bedroom at my Baristas and Baddies espresso martini party, holding a little cake they had smuggled into my house and singing happy birthday to me, which then involved everybody at the party, which is a not insignificant number of people all staring at me and singing happy birthday, and there isn't anywhere I could run to that's not gonna have people singing
we really
and staring.
had you
like a
cornered.
Trapped animal.
Good. Good.
It was both so lovely and touching and made me want to crawl out of my skin.
Good.
And now I have a video of it so I can relive the experience.
Forever.
I will say this. So the birthday party was great. So wonderful to see everybody. I think one of the last get-togethers I'd had at my house beforehand was maybe the Pride party last June. I just distinctly remember you giving me your phone and going, go record a confessional in the bathroom.
That was New Year's 2 years ago.
Okay.
2 New Years ago.
So right before we launched the podcast, we did that. And in the middle of my confessional, I go, oh, and I bought this candle. Isn't it so cool? I just burnt the out of my hands. Just really hot. And I didn't burn myself this time. So
I just really
small
love
wins.
forcing Grant to capture important moments in his life.
You keep sending me really fun TikTok ideas, and I go, I love it. As soon as we find a second cool, natural person to be on camera with you, can't wait to run it. Oh, is Casey going to do it with you? Oh, we got Lee in again. Lee's making a reappearance.
Lee would.
I actually think it'd be really funny if it was you and people from the universe, and then I'm like coming home like, what is this? I tell a whole
You're
story.
in the background.
Yeah, 100%.
Drinking a gin and tonic.
No, I can dance. I can like do a little like arm thing, you know? The trick to dancing when you look like me is to move everything but your feet. You go ahead and go and plant those, but then anything else that rotates should.
That can rotate.
Exactly.
Without
my hip
cracking
is
or creaking.
actually getting better. I'm actually pretty sure it's because I'm sleeping on my side.
That's so unfortunate.
I
for
know.
you.
But fortunately, I didn't have to go to a physical therapist. Bringing you to my next topic. Maya, how are you?
Okay. All right. Had a bit of a little mentee bee yesterday and had an existential crisis. I was like, why am I not working out as much as I normally do? And so I did F45 yesterday, despite being very asleep.
Okay.
When Casey came downstairs, it was like, do you want to go to F45 with me? My heart said no. My brain said, you must. And then I did solid core this morning, immediately followed by PT, which sometimes I forget PT is actually just a workout.
With you and 4 or 5 other people in the room, too. It's like a whole crowd.
Yeah, it's not like doing burpees or some shit. It's deceptively hard. And so I walked in and I was like, I'm not going to say that. Mr. PT, sir. Maya, cut that. Hi, doctor. That just, I'm gonna have to just
I can't wait to
bleep
hear what
out
that
his
ultimately
name.
ends up sounding. I hope you keep all 3 of those takes and it's like beep. Sorry, beep, beep, beep. Hurt. body.
No, he had me like warming up on the bike, which as soon as someone tells you to warm up at a doctor's appointment, mistakes have been made.
Yikes.
But I was like, I did solid core this morning, so I'm a little sore. And he went, "What solid core?"
Oh.
And I went, "Okay."
Your physical therapist said, "What's solid
It's
core?"
like a specific type of workout.
No, I know.
Brand.
I also think it's one that's like pretty common now, or at least for those who work in like the fitness industry.
I did tell him to listen, so maybe don't bash him too much.
Oh, sorry. I'm sure you're great. Sorry, it's just kind of wild. It's like him saying like, "What's running?" I'm sorry.
I was like, it's Pilates. I should have been more specific that it's like reformer Pilates, because I don't know that he fully believed how much pain I was in, because I hadn't done a solid core class in like 2 weeks, and I walked in and was unwell. And then later we had a conversation about what kind of books he reads, because the other PT was talking about how he reads sci-fi.
I'm sorry, were you on a date with this doctor? Or
There's a lot of just quiet time while he's sticking needles into my thigh, and my palms are sweating profusely.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Are you like a book guy?" And he was like, "Yeah, I read historical nonfiction." And at first I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And then he started talking about all the cool historical figures that he's learned about, and I was like, "Oh, you would actually really like the stories my podcast tells." I'm so sorry for making fun of you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our DMs are open, so slide right on in.
He has a wife. Calm down.
Yeah, great. I can also be horny for historical stories.
I hate the order of words that you just said that in.
A year in, y'all, and I can still surprise her. And that's what's so important about it all.
Okay.
So anyway, so my birthday was great, and your body is recovering. You're going to run the half marathon with us?
Absolutely not.
It's so funny. We started off, I'm sorry, if you're not a runner, you're like, more running content. We started off with like 9-10 people signed up for this, right? And between logistical problems and...
Who else has dropped?
Griffin and Taylor maybe missed the registration deadline and are now waiting on a personal email back to see if they can get in. So it's like, you, Griffin, Taylor, who else did we lose? We've lost... It started at 9, we're down to like 3. It's like me, Tyler, and Danny running it. Oh, and Jacob.
Is Lydia not anymore?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, she was just doing a different race. But no, she is. Okay, so there's still like 5 or 6 of us.
Isn't she doing the half?
She is. This is me catching up to what you remember.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because last time I talked, she was like, "I think I'm just going to walk it." I was like, "You're going to walk a half marathon in 3 hours?" 3.5 maybe. But
That's basically what I do to run it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm worried about making that deadline.
Right.
She's gonna have to jog some of it. We talked about it. I might be giving I could give my registration to Griffin or Taylor if they end up needing it. I was gonna give it to Sophie, but she runs 10 miles just for fun on a weekend.
Lee Sophie's or Danny Sophie?
Lee Sophie.
Okay, cool. Sorry, there's now multiple.
So if one of them wants to run it, they can have. There's no way I can catch up on the training I've lost at this point. I did get an X-ray.
Are you sure? Because I'm still planning on running it.
You've been running, though.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess if you looked at me walking, you'd be like, yeah, that's running. But I don't think if you see me naturally, you're like, that's running.
No, that's not how I feel either. I just have to go up by, I think the longest I ran is half of the half marathon. And the last couple times I've run, I have been in immediate and bad pain.
Oh.
Like a week ago I did 15 minutes, and then, or maybe 2 weeks ago I did 15 minutes, and then last week I did like 10 minutes, and it was...
Of running?
Mm-hmm. And it was still like... When I did 15 minutes, I woke up the following 2 mornings in so much pain. I had to take like ibuprofen and sit there and scroll my phone until it kicked in so I could fall back asleep.
You're just so much more physically adept than me in everything that it's crazy to think that there is one area that I could beat you in, and that is in a tortoise and the hare competition right now.
I could walk it.
I ran
maybe
5 miles at Wash Park last night.
Yeah, you could definitely outrun me right now.
That's so wild. It's like when the kids saw me running after a kid who was trying to leave campus, and I overheard one of them go, low-key, Thomas is kind of athletic. It's like, thank you.
There was
High school affirmation is why I'm like this.
There was one time that we had our like campus security guard run after someone in the student parking lot. I don't remember why, but I think there's 2 of them, and we all knew immediately neither of them were going to even come close to catching the student, and we were like, this just isn't looking good for anyone. You should stop.
Let's see, is there any work stories that I can share right now? Oh, I will say this. I had a couple of students redoing some assignments in my class today after school. And as soon as the clock hit 4:31, I was like, okay, well, I think we all put in like a really good day's work. And I will go ahead and put down that you guys stayed for the entire time. And that means you can take more time tomorrow if you need. But anyways, I'll go ahead and collect those real quick. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, y'all.
Goodbye.
Exactly. And in December, I'm like, what do you mean you're leaving? It's only 6:15. Like, we have practices to run still. Get up there. And now I'm like, sun out, you also out.
Goodbye.
Exactly.
Yeah, Casey and I went on a walk, but then decided to like stop for a beer. And then it was like about to be 6:45, and we were like, we should head back. And then I checked your location. I was like, oh, Grant might be on time. And then so we like kind of hurried back. And then I started setting up, and then 7 rolls around, 7:05, 7:10, 7:15. I'm checking his location. He is here. I'm like, what? And then Grant,
The call's coming from inside the house.
Casey just went, I bet he stopped for dinner. And I was like, he would not.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Casey said.
Friends, like, legitimately decades ago.
A delicious wing.
And by that, thank you. Legitimately delicious wing. Thank you so much, Lori. Like a decade ago, and by that I mean like May of last year, I was coming over to record, and it had been a really full day for me. It had gone from teaching at school to district debate practice at a different school, and then I was going to come here to record. And as I said at the time, all 3 of those things bring me joy. Yeah. All 3 of those things I love. And also, no me time. And I knew that once we were done recording, I was just going to go home and go to bed. And so I was like, oh, I might just be a little late. And I went real quick and flirty like to the Shake Shack in your neighborhood to eat what I'm sure everyone else thought was a sad dinner alone. But for me, I was like, yes!
I would have been the same way.
No, I know. But then I made the mistake of telling Casey, because
yeah.
he was like, I would have cooked you something. And I said, I know, that's why I didn't tell you. And that hit him way harder than if I was just like, oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it hit him way harder to the point where he has remembered it a year later. And I was like, oh, yeah, Grant did that.
Yeah, one time Grant wanted 18 minutes alone for a Swiss mushroom burger and told you that he didn't want your well-cooked meal.
He is a Southern mom at heart.
Is.
He just cooked red beans and rice. It's just like a Southern. He like had it when we went to brunch like a week or so ago, and he was like, "Oh my God, this tastes like home."
Listen.
And I was like, "What? This?" Wait, I have one more thing to tell you that I mean, it could be on air. I don't know. There was a TikTok that I came across, but it's just like, you know, the our house in the middle of the street, our house.
In the middle of the singing podcast.
Yeah, so it's that line just repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
And then the graphic is like a drawing of like a house, and it zooms in on the house, goes into the door, and then another house. And then it's just like over and over again. the best part was the caption, or maybe like the top comment was like, this was on my phone while I was in sleep paralysis. And I thought I was dying.
That's so good.
That's so fucking funny.
I'm sorry, because I don't know where Maya's cutting in.
I might keep that in.
We've
That's
basically
really
been just doing, like, I've recently seen on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And friends, here's another really fun part about what happened over my birthday weekend. So you can basically, as the kids would say,
Yeah.
have a sleepover with the homies whenever you want.
It's true.
And I invited, we had a good turnout. I mean, I think
You had a lot of people.
Yeah, I think 20, 30 people.
Yeah. Who ended up staying in your guest room?
Right. So the Bohawks called that a week before the party. Lydia was like, oh, and has anyone already reserved the guest bedroom? And I was like, no, they have not. And so they were like, perfect. And so the Bohawks stayed in the guest bedroom. Danny stayed on the couch, and Tyler and Hayden shared the air mattress in my office. So me plus 5 of my closest friends all spent the night. It was wonderful.
That's so
it was
cute.
fantastic. We had like coffee and little breakfast in the morning. And then Hayden and Tyler didn't want to drive back up north because there was still evening activities. So we just kind of kicked it at my house for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where I got to participate in like such an important tradition in my community. And by that I mean the gay community. And that is forcing your friends to watch the strangest, unfunniest YouTube videos that have you on the floor. I made them watch The Gay and Wonderful Life of Caleb Gallo. It's so funny on YouTube. Watch it. It's free. You're going to enjoy it.
Tyler made me watch that while we were in
It's very
Europe.
low budget, but it's endearing, and it's
so
just
funny.
so fun to force people. Like between that and music videos, that's the only kind of media that we consume.
Yeah, me and Lee had one of those nights. We made mead together.
That's so gay.
We made blackberry mead. We named the jug that it's currently
Like,
fermenting
I've had some
in.
beautiful romantic evenings in my
Okay.
life that were straighter than the thing you just explained to me.
Here's the other thing I was going to tell you in relation to the house in the middle of
I want
the
you to
street.
send that to me tonight so I can just cackle.
Don't know where it is. I will do my best to find it.
Because if you do, I love to do this thing where I just like kind of cackle super
Yeah.
loud in the middle of the night in my tiny little house. And I like to imagine it's like a Hunchback of Notre Dame situation.
Okay, so here's
No, sorry, what are
the
you
other
saying?
thing I was gonna tell you. So this might have happened the same night where I was also a little toasty, pretty toasty, and I was just scrolling. I cackled at this for like
Yes,
30 minutes.
yes.
I found a like a slideshow of like carousel of like just like funny, I think tweets.
Okay.
And I got through like 3 of them. I was dying and I wanted to send it to like you and Casey and then like Abby and Maddie.
Right.
The first one in that carousel was, I know that you're not supposed to self-diagnose, but I've Googled all my symptoms and I'm pretty sure I'm a raccoon. And I was
Yeah.
dying. And
Yeah.
that's funny as it is. And I don't know if you've seen that Instagram has an update where their like search bar is now an AI.
Oh, okay.
So if there's no results, it'll just like give you an AI result. And so I was like, I need to find this again. I scrolled away before I could like send it to anyone. I was so sad. And so I just threw that tweet into the search bar.
I am a raccoon.
That said, I've Googled everything and I'm pretty sure I'm a raccoon. And there's no results, so Meta AI auto-responded, and I'll read you the response.
I love this. We'd
I-
love to sponsor you. Sorry.
I think there may be some confusion here. As a friendly AI, I'm happy to help you explore your identity, but I think it's unlikely that you're actually a raccoon. Raccoons are wonderful creatures, but they are animals, and you are a human being. You might be feeling a connection to raccoons or identifying with some of their qualities, but that's different from actually being a raccoon. If you're feeling curious or unsure about your identity, I'm here to listen and perhaps you explore your thoughts and feelings. Perhaps we can discover what's behind your fascination with raccoons.
I like to think then it ended it with 2 phone numbers. The first to the Trevor Project, like the LGBTQ national hotline, and the other one just to the mental health crisis hotline. I love how he's like, listen, I was not programmed to have this conversation, but if you think you're a raccoon, babes, let's get into it. That AI is trying to get onto this podcast.
That AI is so confused and so supportive. And I was crying.
Oh, you're crying right now.
Alone in my bed. Because I was trying to find a funny meme that I still cannot find.
One of my students said, having discovered the TikTok and stuff, and of course I'm gaslighting him, doing all the things, but at one point in class he just goes, Mister, how do you get clout when I don't have clout? And I want to say like a bunch of stuff like, well, I have like a style, a personality, and interest and depth. I mean, he's just
I'm also
he's just
an
15,
adult.
like he's just
Yeah.
a child. Like
Yeah.
he probably will have those one day. But then also at the same time, like, I just don't know if he's living a life in a way that an AI would be like, hey, you're probably not a raccoon, but I don't want to tell you what you are. I don't know if he's living a life that would ever lead him to have an AI be like, hey, human girl, how is your non-raccoon life? I'd like to hear more, and I bet others would too.
So funny. I was
like, it's the definition of doing it for the plot, but you aren't intentionally trying to write it.
I screenshot the response and I can't. Anyway, that's my story.
No, this is reminding me of what Griffin, my brother, sorry, I'm just using his first name, what my younger brother has been sending me, and now I have started to send him back.
Yeah.
We just keep sending clips to each other from the first couple seasons of Girls, like the HBO show written by Lena Dunham.
Yes.
Because he thinks it reminds, this is hard to say, sorry. Some of the clips remind him of me, and that means now that I've been watching them, the For You page is like,
just all
is this
that?
what you want to see?
Yes.
And some of them are legitimately funny. Like Hannah's boyfriend in one of the early seasons, Adam Driver.
Oh my God.
Right. She's like dying in the hospital, and Hannah's like, Grandma, this is my boyfriend, Adam. And she's like, I'm not in a position to be meeting new people right now, Hannah. And Adam Driver's character goes, oh yeah, sorry, it's just, we're getting married next year. And the whole idea was like, let Grandma go, thinking Hannah's getting married. And for how complicated that show and Lena Dunham is in a lot of ways.
Oh my God.
Sometimes it just works on screen for seasons. And that's what Griffin keeps sending me. He's like, hey, I saw the worst person you've ever seen in your entire life who's stuck in adolescence in Brooklyn, New York in the mid-2000s. And it reminded me of you.
Thanks.
Exactly. Like, what
I think.
But it's also so funny. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I think we're all raccoons.
I just can't get over the fucking Mark Zuckerberg AI being like, no, but maybe.
Maybe. Probably not, but I would never want to crush your dreams.
But, like, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. Anyway, you have a story, I think.
I do have a story. Friends, today in part one of...
In the Bag.
In the Bag, I think the title already, but I can't say it right now. I'm excited about this. There's fair warning right now.
It's going to be two-parter.
This is probably a two-part episode.
So if you hate two-parters, sorry.
We haven't done one since Paddy Hearst.
So you maybe wait till next week if you
Correct.
don't want a cliffhanger.
And today's episode is about what if Patty Hearst was a raccoon? I'm sorry. Third time, you have to
can't
get 3
do
jokes.
that
You
while
could have
I have
drowned.
gin and
You could have
tonic
drowned.
in my
No,
mouth.
I'm not gonna. That's it for the raccoon jokes. Probably. I don't know.
Maybe.
You honestly.
I don't know. I
mean,
think I'm a raccoon.
I'm almost. So I want you. Don't say it out loud. In your head.
Sponge.
Okay, and there's the answer. The question was going to be, in case you're not
Did you
prophetic.
get that joke?
No.
From
that
New
was
Girl?
a joke. I actually haven't seen much New Girl.
There's
like,
an
at all.
episode of New Girl. Sorry, this will be the last tangent before I let Grant start a story. There's an episode
Imagine
of
all the skippers who finally got to that last sentence and they're like, nah! Go ahead.
There's an episode towards the end where Max Greenfield's character Schmidt is like got the job to figure out how to market cleaning supplies like a sponge, like hygiene, to men.
Okay.
And so he just takes I think it's like Winston, Coach, and Nick into the bathroom, and he's like, we're gonna do a little word association. I say a word, you say the first thing that you think of. And he says sponge, and Nick goes, sponge! And he's like, it can't be the same word.
He just recalls the word back.
It can't be the same
That
word.
makes sense, though. That does make a lot of sense.
And then he does it like 3 times, and it progressively gets more and more angry at Nick. And you're like, I'm pretty sure it's Sponge if it's not someone's yelling at me, but it's like, Sponge! Nick!
Me?
Anyway, Sponge! Continue your story.
I know, I've just got to collect myself. Right now, not knowing anything about the story, just what the theme is, without saying it, I want you to think in your head, what do I think Grant's going to share?
See, because I'm immediately thinking about what I'm gonna share.
Okay, which isn't the question.
I know, but I don't know what you're gonna share.
Sorry,
I never know.
It was exam day at school, so it's like,
okay, you can't say the same word I just said.
Exactly. Okay, well then let's just get into the story then. Okay?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Well, you also told me not to say it, so.
Right. I'll let you know when I want you. But you have a prediction?
No.
Okay.
I'll think of one. Maybe.
So on the evening, story starting now, y'all. Sorry. On the evening of Saturday, March 18th, 1990. That was Saturday, March 18th, 1990. A lot is going on in the city of Boston. It is St. Patrick's Day weekend, and the St. Paddy's Day parade, one of the largest in the country, will take place tomorrow. There is excitement in the air. Under that backdrop, the Mission Hill neighborhood in South Central Boston is one of the quieter parts of town.
Okay.
Richard Abbott and Randy Helston enjoyed that quiet as they worked the night shift at 25 Evans Way, Boston, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. They're both night guards who are used to nothing happening. So they were alarmed when 2 Boston police officers arrive responding to reports of an incident and disturbance that night at 1:25 a.m. They were even more alarmed when the 2 Boston police officers informed them, "Gentlemen, this is a robbery." Today, we are going to learn about the largest art heist in the history of the world. The theft of 13 pieces from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. How that crime was committed, by who, and why, is still to come. But first, a little backstory.
Oh.
I'm doing a true crime episode.
Yes! Yes!
I mean, you had to predict it was some kind of robbery thing when I said in the bag, right?
That's the obvious answer.
Correct. And I love when it's my theme, doing the bare minimum. So it was like, here's the story I want. Perfect. Here's the title.
For a second, I thought you were about to do like a leprechaun thing, and I was like, I was about to be like, we went in very different directions.
Got it in the pot was the alternative title to this. Yes, pot of gold. You can be a raccoon, but I can't be like a little southern every now and then.
Yeah. Obviously.
I mean, I think it was pretty clear it was going to be a robbery the entire time.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited for it.
I'm fucking excited.
Okay, so then the police show up at 1:25 a.m.
Okay.
What I think the title of this episode is going to be, In the Bag, Part 1, Night at the Museum.
Nice.
Thank you, right?
That's good.
Listen, for how lazy I get on the themes, I kind of come back in it with the episode titles.
That's good.
Okay, so let's get into it a little bit. Oh, and today's sources, there were a lot of them. And I've realized in the last couple episodes, I haven't been reading them out loud.
It's okay. You can find them on our website that I'm 99% sure no one has ever been to.
That's not true. Sometimes I will when I see what happens in a Google search of us. I'm like, oh, it's still just us. Gotcha. Well, today's sources. Oh, and also you can watch some of them at home right now after you finish this episode. The documentary, This is a Robbery, from Netflix. Articles from the Vanity Fair, NPR, the Boston Herald, the Boston Library, Radio WBUR in Boston, the Gardner Museum's website itself, and a variety of other sources. I probably sourced from legitimately 15 to 20 different sources. It doesn't include the actual documentary itself. That was a 4-part episode that I also got a chance to watch.
Nice.
When I found an article from the Boston Libraries, I was so pumped. Because the last time I used an article from a city's public library, the Casa Bonita episode, where the city of Denver was like, here is everything that has ever happened at Casa Bonita.
This place.
Just waiting for someone to connect all the dots.
Did you see someone in our Patreon talked about Casa Bonita that they're like,
yes,
uncle?
We need to say it. They're hot uncles to work at. I mean, like in the 80s, like, they're like, I don't know, probably a Republican these days. But like,
yeah, I mean,
if that was you, listener, I'm sorry. I'm sure you have a lovely uncle. I shouldn't have said that.
What was that? Basically, our patron member was like Patreon member / patron. Jesus Christ.
Discordian, as someone started to say it today.
That's really funny.
I know, not one of ours. It's like someone else came up with the word.
I've been My brain has been doing that thing where it doesn't produce serotonin, so I haven't been checking. I've been like reading the notifications, and I haven't been. I need to go on there and say something every once in a while.
Turn off some of them as notifications.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, you were gonna say?
Anyway, this person was a diver at Casa Bonita and then went on to be like an Olympic diver or something like that. Crazy.
And then he did the cliffs of Acapulco and then got denied when he tried to... I'm now just referencing the story. All of this is not true about this person.
Okay.
Remember the person who
Oh,
did it
the
because
other,
of
yeah,
age discrimination?
Yes. Nice.
So art heists are a really common thing throughout history.
In Acapulco.
In Casa Bonita.
In Boston.
Also in France and Paris. And so to really start this episode, we're going to talk about some of the art heists I decided not to do. Because I think art heists are fun. It's
They're
like
so
crime,
cool.
There's like intrigue, but it's not like... it is a statement on the failings of our justice system, but like not necessarily always like in a sad racial prejudice kind of way.
Yeah.
More of like in a other incompetencies kind of way. So, art heist is an old and fascinating profession. For example, the Mona Lisa has been stolen a couple of times. Yeah. It finally made its like semi-permanent move to the Louvre Museum in Paris in 1797. And then Napoleon Bonaparte was like, I would like that in my bedroom. And so in
Weird,
the 1820s, it was moved to his bedroom and then eventually returned. And then, and this is, I think, so funny. You jump forward to 1911. The Mona Lisa still is not that popular among the general public. It's basically only popular among like other artists and poets. Like the real snobbery that's going to the Louvre, they love the Mona Lisa.
I mean, honestly,
I feel the same way.
I feel the same way.
I think if there was a lot less intense fanfare around the Mona Lisa, I would have liked it more when I saw it. But I remember getting there and being like, this feels like I'm at Disneyland.
There's no I'm not standing in a line to see this objectively like one of the smallest paintings in this museum.
Right, and also it's not like this was the only good thing in this museum. Like there's
It's cool.
beautiful stuff in every direction.
I found the poster several tens of feet behind it talking about why people like the Mona Lisa far more fascinating than the Mona Lisa itself.
So the Mona Lisa is not one of the works of art that gets stolen in the Gardner Museum heist.
I
but
figured.
I love
I
how
don't
much
think it's-
opinions we have on it.
It's a dumb painting.
So I think then you're going to love this next part of the story. In 1911, the painting, while still not popular, was stolen again.
Nice.
On the 21st of August, 1911.
Still not popular.
the painting was stolen. And it wasn't noticed for a couple of days. And
Oh no!
until the painter Louis Berard, Beroud, it's French.
Berard.
Great, fantastic. Until he noticed, after some confusion as to whether or not the painting was being photographed elsewhere, the Louvre was like, oh crap.
We lost one.
And they closed for a week to try to find it.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Mona Lisa.
No, I make that joke later on. There's so many different
so
jokes
good.
on this. You are. I mean, and I think I put it in for you. We're just one long-running bit between the two of us now.
That's so real.
So they were like, oh God, we can't find it. And after closing down the Louvre for a week, the Mona Lisa is not here either.
In the Louvre, they spent a week looking
for it.
in the Louvre.
Oh, maybe we just put it in storage or something. I remember it's like 1911, so there's not like security footage
It's not
or
like
anything.
the big lines, roped off lines, and the big plexiglass case around it.
So there was glass around it, but not like a lot of other stuff. So they immediately were like, we know who did it. A French poet named Guillaume. I'm not very good
Spell
with French. Guillaume. Thank you. Anyways, so they're immediately like, he did it. And he's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it personally. Like, I would never, but I have it on personal authority that Pablo Picasso saw the Mona Lisa. And so they were like,
You keep my wife's name out your mouth. Don't come for Pablo like that.
I wouldn't, like, never, like, oh my God, I would never dream, like, that couldn't be me, never. Like, I love the Mona Lisa, but, like, not that way. But
That guy
Pablo
did
Picasso, who I just so happened to have a rivalry with, know for a fact he stole it. So they arrest him, almost ruin his life, but then they were like, LOL JK, you also don't have it.
No fucking shit, bro.
Both were later exonerated. Turns out the real culprit of the person who stole the Mona Lisa was an employee of the Louvre.
Yeah, Yeah!
A man by the name of Vincenzo Perugia. And the reason why I know there was glass around the Mona Lisa is because Vincenzo Perugia installed the glass around the Mona Lisa. And then when he was like, oh, no one will notice, he snuck in one day, hid in a broom closet until they closed for the day, and then just put it under his coat and walked out the front door.
Those of you who haven't seen how small the Mona Lisa is in person, it is truly appalling. You've probably seen pictures on your computer that are bigger
Sure.
than the Mona Lisa is IRL.
Still, by that point, though, you probably shouldn't be taking a painting like that and rolling it under your had to be sweaty. It's August in Paris jacket, you know?
It
that
had
can't
to
be
have
good
been
for
in
the
a
paint.
frame.
Probably, but
I don't
how
think
do you
he
then
could have
fit the
taken
whole
it out.
frame under, and how do you not look boxy? Like how is
It was
not poking
1911.
out? That's fair.
The money bags had money signs on them
Exactly.
at this point.
Wolves drove trains. It's in Cartoon Network, the Acme, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I lost
they
it.
lost anvils because
anyways-
they fell on Roadrunners.
Perugia stole it because he loved art. No. But Perugia stole it because he was an Italian patriot.
Did he lose a bet?
No, even worse. He loved his country.
Oh, no.
Perugia was an Italian patriot who believed all Italian art should be returned to Italy. Real quick, friends, since I know you don't know this because you don't have the curse of a history education degree like I do, the year is 1911. Maya, what year do you think Italy was finally formed as one state?
Around that time.
1871. Italy had existed for 40 years.
That's insane.
Vincenzo Perugia was like one of the first people born Italian and not just like Florentine or Venetian
Like a
or
different
Roman.
European.
Like just a city state
Yeah.
and said they combined it all together. And he was like, well, now that we are all together.
All except for the Vatican.
Right. Overcooked, undercooked. And like a weird part in northern Italy that belonged to Austria at the time, but like that's other
It's
history
fine,
later.
it's fine.
World War One's coming. Anyway, so he
I know
steals
so
it.
much European
and
history.
he brings it to Italy, and he's like, yes, now it's in Italy. I know everyone's gonna want it, and then no one wanted it.
Because it's the Mona Lisa.
And he had to keep it in his apartment for 2 years.
Imagine being like, and this is the Mona Lisa.
Exactly. Eventually, okay, this is now actual words.
Before you come at me for saying the Mona Lisa's finished, no, it's not. No, it's not.
For the record, I don't think a raccoon would have this many opinions about the Mona Lisa.
Well, the meta AI was right. I was not a raccoon.
I would ask Meta AI later, maybe as part of Patreon, what's its thoughts on the Mona Lisa?
That would be a great
Ask it for an
Patreon
opinion,
episode.
not for like details that are in this episode right now. Okay. Anyways, so eventually Vincenzo Perugia is like, I do not want this anymore. Giovanni Paghi, director of the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, a place I went with Tyler. Please, do you want it? And he was like, absolutely. Cops, someone has the Mona Lisa in his house. After snitching
He
on
didn't
him.
even want it. He was just like, get it out of
I'm
here.
pretty sure like an established art gallery is like, yeah, we can't take a stolen artwork, buddy.
That's
like, also, we're not like some backwater gallery. We're like one of
A
the art galleries in Italy with the thing you do in Florence, even today.
It's like the Musée d'Orsay stealing the Mona Lisa.
Yes, exactly.
And putting it up.
It'd be like Paris putting the Statue of Liberty next to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
They'd be like, it's always been there. Sure, it was made in France, but it doesn't go there
It was
anymore.
from the same event, just
That
a couple
was
years later.
A perfect analogy, and no one's going to give me credit for it. So it turns out stealing art isn't as hard as we thought it was going to be. It ends up back in France just in time for World War One. Mona Lisa, she seems fun at parties. Anyways, that little quick tangent about the history of the stealing of Mona Lisa is all to say. Art heist, art history, really funny, really interesting.
I love art
There's
history.
almost always a moment where it's like, like, what? How did that happen? So we're gonna
I fucking love art history. Wait, I
You're gonna
want
really love this episode,
I
I
want to
think.
study on how many times the Mona Lisa should have been destroyed. Because the number of
you
times
count the day you went and then count back from there.
Yeah. I didn't even get in line. It was too long. I would have gone if there was no line, but Tyler and I were like, there's other things to
I
see.
love you. I agree with you. And not finding the Mona Lisa interesting is the like travel to Europe way of like, I liked the band before they were cool.
Yeah. Well, also the Mona Lisa's just, it's the Mona Lisa. It's fine. You see more detail in a picture on the internet than you do in real life. The number of times it's been involved in like protests for like free Palestine and stuff like that, or like global warming, where they've tried to like throw soup on it.
Right.
Like
That
I'm
and
pretty sure
sunflowers.
fully knowing that it's like
Right.
encased in glass.
Right. I think when it's glass, it's encanced.
Ensconced?
Broach.
You can't make fun of me and then say the word that you're falsely accusing me of using incorrectly.
Can't I, Maya? I'm pretty sure we have 50 episodes that shows I absolutely can.
I had to start correcting you because people were like, I can't believe you let Grant say that and then just didn't say anything. I know what you
Meanwhile,
mean.
Grant, you're perfect. Maya!
Come on!
Because you are held to
the woman!
Yeah, exactly. Literally all the time. That's so
Also,
funny.
shut up!
The one time I want you to use your woman voice and you don't. See, what are women good for?
What are you good for?
I formed a weird sexual relationship with my best friend in high school that really warped my opinion on romance later in life. Women!
Yes, exactly.
I don't know what on earth this episode has been so far.
Dude, I don't either. I'm just here.
Let's go back to Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
And specifically talk about our
Go
girl.
back to Boston.
You're going to need to
Your
do a lot more
friend
of that.
from Boston.
Isabella Stewart Gardner.
Yep.
Who, when she's born, is just Isabella Stewart. Isabella Stewart Gardner was eccentric. She was smart, witty, funny, fashionable. She was sexy and kind of knew it and kind of liked to show that off.
Love that.
Which was completely unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
She was known for arranging the occasional boxing matches. And when she wasn't doing that, she was befriending basically every bohemian she could. She largely lived the kind of life many of us dreamed of. So she grew up in Manhattan, and this is like in the 1840s and 50s.
Okay.
And then at age 16, her family moved to Paris, where she attended a school for American girls.
Sorry, 1840s?
1840s, 1850s.
When did the art heist happen?
1990.
Okay.
I
okay.
sent us way far back.
Okay, I was like,
No, you were not wrong, and that's a good catch. Sorry, as a person who has been studying this topic now for damn near a month, I'm like, yeah, Mile, come on, keep up. Like 1840s, she's born in Manhattan.
I don't know.
It's the Gilded Age. It's on HBO. It's fine. So, she moves to Paris.
'Kay.
At the age of 16, she becomes best friends with our friend Julia Gardner. Gonna come back to her later. And Julia Gardner has a hot older brother whose name's like John Jacob Jingle Peabody Stewart Gardner Schmidt.
The third.
But we're just gonna call him Jack. I'm not even joking. That's like, he basically gets called Jack Gardner in all of the stuff I read.
Nice.
They would become friends and then lovers, and then they would marry each other, and they'd move to Boston, and it's all really sweet and romantic. And then, and this is a trigger warning, deep into this episode, there's going to be some talk of some violence, but right now, just a quick content warning about family loss. In 1863, Isabella and her husband, Jack, have a baby boy who dies before his second birthday of pneumonia.
That's rough.
Later that year, she will get pregnant and then have a miscarriage. And the miscarriage will be handled so poorly, it will prevent her from having children ever again in her life.
Yikes.
Also that year, Julia Gardner, her friend from school
Yeah.
and Jack's brother, dies. And so she loses 2 children, essentially.
Yeah,
and
and
a
her
sister-in-law,
best-
who is
yeah.
also a bestie.
Yeah.
And in a very natural state of things, completely flattens Isabella. Like, she becomes ill, and like there's a whole bunch of ailments, but it's basically like she completely loses the will to live.
Yeah,
Her
I
entire
can
life is kind
imagine,
of
yeah.
crumbled. But
Does she write an award-winning novel in a mysterious sleepover party at Lord Byron's house?
no, close. She divorces the man and then writes a series of award-winning mystery novels, becoming the world's most publicized female
And
author.
her husband definitely didn't kill her.
Not across the frozen lake. No, but the only time you will ever hear anyone say this ever, thank God for the doctors in 1867 who have no real medical way of treating depression.
Those were all jokes from previous episodes. Don't if you are just tuning in now, like
Trying to figure out what on earth they missed.
what I started saying, that was Mary Shelley, and then Agatha Christie, and then Maria Martin. God, we're good.
Great episodes, though. So anyways, thank God for doctors in the 1860s because while they couldn't do anything for low and middle class people who had all of the money of the world. Oh, Jack Gardner is related to the Peabodys.
Oh.
Like the people who shipped in all of America's spice from the Indies and also founded the Peabody Awards.
And the Peabody Institute.
Yeah.
I have several friends two friends that go there.
Low-key, his name
married.
really was like John Jacob Kennedy Brown Hammerheimer Peabody Schmidt. Like he's just related to everybody.
Titanic.
Exactly.
Brown,
Northrop Grumman. Boeing,
Facebook.
Bush, Anheuser-Schmidt. They were like, you have money, so we would suggest you just kind of go on vacation. What if instead you just got out of the house and
Where
left?
do I find one of those?
He was like, oh, I'm sorry. Now that we verified your income, we're actually able to upgrade you from the gold program, which is seaside air down by the seashore, and actually upgrade you to the Paris Deluxe Passage. And Jack's like, we'll do it. And Isabella doesn't seem to be a major decision maker at this time.
She's a woman in the 1800s.
And so depressed they have to carry her onto the boat on a gurney. She is not moving on her own accord.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And thank God Jack, who I think like legitimately did like love her,
yeah.
was like, let's go, babes.
I would literally be there right now if it weren't for modern medicine and therapy.
Yes.
I made a joke with my physical therapist today. He was like...
Who's listening, apparently.
I don't know if he is
your wife?
or not, but... It's going to be so funny the day I walk in and he's like, so I listened to your episode. I said something a little self-deprecating or something, and I was like, listen, you're not my only therapist. No reaction from him.
That's so funny. It's me, you, and your therapist, and your physical therapist.
And I think he was just like looking at his other patient or something, or like
Well, that's right,
listening
because
to...
there's 4 other strangers.
There's so many people in that room, and I was like, okay.
Tough that joke lands with none of them, though.
It was so funny!
Not an experience I've ever had. I'm like a perfect
you.
storyteller, but like tough to have that happen.
It was such a good joke. Appreciate it.
It really was. I appreciate it.
Thank you. God damn it.
So anyways, they just like basically drag her onto a boat, and then Jack's like, here's Scandinavia, here's St. Petersburg, Russia, and here's
Casey, are you listening? This is what
Paris.
I want you to do next time I go through a depressive episode. Take me to Paris.
And in Paris, she starts to feel a little better, and then he was like, would you feel even better if we bought millions of dollars worth of art? And she was like, yeah.
Lee in the room with us?
Paris brings her back. Paris
That's good.
on this trip is really when she
I love
starts
that.
to collect art for the first time, where she starts to collect these eccentric
gets
friends.
joy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much of this episode is going to focus on the actual heist. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Right now, this is the how does the museum even come to exist portion of the episode. She does, I think, seem in that moment decide that she's going to live a different life because the cards that she's been dealt means she can't be like mother and matriarch and like she's already suffered all this tragedy.
Yeah.
But she has her own little renaissance.
Like, what do I do now? Everything I've been told I should be in the 1800s, I can no longer be.
Correct. And so she's going to auction houses and she's buying up a bunch of stuff and she's sending it back. Eventually, her and Jack do move back to Boston. And then every cloud has a silver lining kind of thing. Jack Gardner's older brother passes away. Ooh. I don't see a lot of reports that like Isabella and older brother were like best friends. I'm sure she was sad.
Yeah.
But in that tragedy, Jack and Isabella adopt his older brother's 3 kids.
Aww.
And she gets to be a mom to 3
That's
young
really
boys.
Sweet.
Yeah. And according to all reports, she like loved them and raised them as her own. She's a mother of 3, has all these interesting friends.
She sounds like a phenomenal boy mom.
I think she really was.
Truly.
Boxing matches.
Yeah.
Bohemians. And then in 1899, she is like, I actually have such good taste. Go ahead.
Boxing matches, Bohemians, boys.
But how was your Friday?
Bears beats
Battlestar Galactica. Oh, you got to declare a rhyme there. Oh, anyways, so in 1899, she's like, I have such a good collection. I'm going to build a museum.
As she should.
But what to call it? I know. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
I love that.
Jack is not in the name.
Fuck yeah.
And I don't think Isabella Stewart was poor by any means.
Yeah.
Manhattan upbringing.
Yeah,
Paris
she came
education.
from a rich...
But I do think Jack really can kind of knocked her up to another
tier. Yeah.
Tax bracket. Those are what I was trying to say. Yes. So she builds this museum in 1899.
In Boston or in Paris?
In Boston.
Okay.
We're now in Boston
so
permanently.
they moved back?
Yes.
When did they move back?
I think around 1875 when they become parents.
Oh, okay. So around the time they adopt.
Yeah.
Okay.
She builds this museum. Once it's built, she spends an entire year just deciding how she wants to display all of her art. And then she needs to make sure she got the acoustics right in this building. And I'll show you a picture of this building in a second. But she does not want anyone to see it until the grand opening. But to test the acoustics, you need humans and bodies.
Yeah.
And so she does the most rational decision, which is sets up a pact with the Boston School of the Blind and has them bring in blind children so she can test the acoustics.
I'm sorry, what?
A little part that's like kind of hard to like fit into the overall Isabella Stewart Gardner narrative is that in addition to forming the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, she also forms loads of charities. One of them is about the ending of animal cruelty, and the other one is the ending of child cruelty.
I thought you were going to say child blindness.
Let's go ahead and fix those eyes so they can see my gallery.
No.
A trip to Paris.
It cures all ails.
It really, I think
does.
we should try. I don't think we should say no.
It didn't work the first time, but maybe the second time it'll take for me.
Yeah, but I don't plan on roller skating around Paris, so I think we're already improving your odds. That's another dig. Children come in. Acoustics are great. Fantastic. She sets up this museum. I'm going to show it to you in a second. It's gorgeous. The museum itself is gorgeous. The collection, where all the paintings are and stuff, everything that's laid out is by her design. And she says this, like in the founding of the institution, writes it into its DNA. If anyone makes a permanent change, a meaningfully permanent change to the building or art collection, it is all to be boxed up, sent to Paris, auctioned off, and the money donated to Harvard. You will keep it as I put it, or you will not have it at all.
Is there like I don't know, like an end to that? Like, copyright laws, like they end after a certain point. Yeah. Is that?
Well, I can tell you, 13 pieces have left the museum.
Okay.
On March 18th, 1990, when they were stolen. No, but for real, those are the only pieces that have ever been removed from the museum ever, or moved from the museum.
I mean, to be fair, I did take a single art history class in college because I went to an engineering school.
Sure.
But learned a lot, and I love to do it I love to use it to make Tyler feel bad about his art knowledge. And then he talks about feet, and then we all feel bad.
That was a joke. So anyways, on the outside of this...
the way a museum is set up, the way a gallery is set up, is also considered art in and of itself.
Yes.
So curators are artists in and of themselves. So I can see her reasoning.
Going through all the research I did, when I was looking at the rooms, the way things were set up, where all the art was and stuff, because 13 pieces, while huge, today valued at over $500 million worth of art from those 13 pieces that were stolen alone. And it's a huge,
Just the 13?
Just the 13, estimated at $500 million in value.
All of this art is probably worth a couple $100.
Yeah. There's a picture of me up there. Anyways, when I was going through
actually, you owe me money.
For that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can Venmo you. Just go ahead and request whatever it is. Truly, whatever price, I will have to pay it. Kidding. No. So anyways, going through it, there was this is how you would set up. There's not a way that'd be if they moved that over there.
Yeah.
There's this thing called the Dutch room, full of Dutch art from a specific time period.
Not Swedish art?
A room painted blue. Want to guess what it's called?
Blue room?
Blue room. There you go. So it's you go through, that's how a museum set up. And her taste did kind of end up being timeless. So I'm going to talk to you about the museum for a second. On the outside, it's very plain. Dare I say, almost drabby at times. But on the inside, it is gorgeous and beautiful. As one Boston newspaper columnist said at the time.
Yeah.
I got this from the documentary. I need you to imagine this in a Boston accent.
Boston.
I'm going to try, and it's not going to be good. It's actually maybe going to be offensively bad. But this is a tough guy talking about going with his wife to this museum. He goes, this is going to make me sound like a wicked snob, but it's it transports you. It's like the Louvre or something. heavy Boston accent. It's gorgeous because on the outside it's drab, but on the inside is a beautiful atrium.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I
Could
wanna-
we hear it? Maybe.
I want to live here forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna make
Even-
me sound like a wicked snob.
But it transports you or something.
You can't say ours.
I'm just going to let you fully do
Wait,
it.
what? On the harbor, the Boston Harbor.
Find it. Give it a second. Find it.
Transport. I'm gonna stop before I bank a fool of myself.
But it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
and
it's stunning.
I see
Holy
a lot
cow.
of pictures and videos of it during the documentary
And
and
there
all
is
the other research.
a Louvre room.
Yes.
Similar to that.
Yeah.
With less plants.
But
So
it's so pretty.
So
and the
pretty.
way, so it's a huge atrium with this gorgeous kind of pitched glass ceiling that
Mm-hmm.
just lets the light in. And it's a 4-story building that seems both tight, so it's intimate, but also kind of big and grand at
and
the
it
same
looks
time.
like it has like ivy almost, but I'm sure it's like hanging plants
Right.
from all the various like floors and stuff. It looks very pretty.
And so it is essentially unchanged from how Isabella Stewart Gardner first set it up in
Honestly,
1899. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Timeless taste
Yeah,
a
she did
little
good.
bit. And now I want to introduce us to one of our final main characters of the backstory before we get into the juicy details. Anne Hawley, museum director. In 1899, the museum hired Anne Hawley as the new director of the museum. She'd been on the job barely a year when the robbery took place. I think it's actually like 6 months.
Oh my God.
She would serve as its director from 1990 until 2016.
Yeah.
She was the first female director of the museum, outside of obviously Elizabeth Gardner.
Right.
Sorry, Isabella Gardner. And her job was to update the museum while also preserving it, remembering Isabella Stewart Gardner's legacy that specifically specified no
not
substantial
change it,
changes
yeah.
be made.
Yeah.
So Anne Hawley is aware that the security system needed to be upgraded.
Yes.
In the same way, many things needed to be upgraded at the museum.
Yeah.
On one of her first weeks on the job, there's a rainstorm in Boston, and she sees a cloud form inside above one of the paintings. And so she's like, okay, well, we need to get a climate control system in here.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's meaningfully changing the building if we are preserving the art that's inside of it.
That's fair, yeah.
And so they were either still working on that or just completed it by the time the night of the robbery rolled around.
Oof.
I know. So now we're going to talk about the robbery.
Yes!
And so a couple of things. One, did a really good job lining up a bunch of different timestamps that I wrote. Truly, so this thing I think right now stands at 20 pages. Around page 15, I was like, I got to go back in and rearrange it.
Yeah.
Because the documentary is and then here's this little bit. Exposition. But then here's this little bit. And I'm like,
yeah.
And so I'm trying to arrange pieces together. So here's what happened the night of the robbery. Also, side note, when I was watching these episodes of the documentaries, I always was starting it at 10 or 11 p.m. on a weekend. And so it was a little scary because they're playing music and everything's
they
dark
do that.
and there's a lot of mess. And I'm like, ha, 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 nothing has ever happened at my house ever. It's just dark right now. But meanwhile, I'm also walking into every room and turning on the light before going back to the...
Yep.
if someone's in this room or in this house, I'm going to see the shadow before I see them.
Yes,
And then I'm
yes,
also
yes,
going to
yes,
draw
yes.
all the blinds so that way I can't see anyone staring in from the outside.
That's really cute that you had to do that for a robbery documentary.
I was scared. That's why I don't do true crime. I just get so sucked into a story. I'm I'm there.
Love serial killer documentaries. I cannot imagine.
I know you watch CNN.
That too. God, today, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. They just showed a lot of footage, and they're like, "This may be traumatizing," and I was like, "Why are you showing it on
Thanks,
public
2024.
television?" Yeah, at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Okay, so you ready for this?
Yes.
I think you're actually, there's a lot of really fun stuff. I'm excited about all of it.
I'm excited.
I think there's a small chance that our true crime fans, this next part's going to be their favorite part of both episodes put together. But we'll find out. There's a lot of interesting stuff, I promise. But here comes the order of how the robbery goes down. So the night shift starts at midnight. So at midnight, 23-year-old guard Richard Abbott takes the first round. There are always 2 guards on duty. One is stationed at the security desk with the security monitors, and the second one armed only with a walkie-talkie and a flashlight. walks
Good.
the museum for basically 45 minutes to an hour,
And then they
gets
switch.
back to the security desk, and they switch.
'Kay.
And you do that. And there had never been any reported incident at the Gardner at night. And so these people are going in day after day, night after night, with nothing
They're just getting,
going on.
yeah, they're not paying attention.
No, they're just becoming numb to it all.
Yeah.
So Richard Abbott takes the first round, walking around the museum. He says on this first round, he notices on one of the top floors, the fire alarm is going off, but there's no fire or anything that's been taking place. So he disarms the fire alarm,
Mistake number
shuts
one.
it off, and then at 12:45 comes back downstairs, releases the other guard on duty so he can start around, and at that point, Richard Abbott takes over the desk at roughly around 12:45 a.m. Also, around 12:45 a.m., outside the Gardner, two pedestrians walking outside the museum see two men dressed as police officers sitting in a car outside the museum. They remembered it seemed so odd because the car they were in was a personal vehicle, not a police vehicle, and is pretty small, especially for the size of the two men that are sitting in it.
Ew.
They're also not really talking to each other or listening
They're
to the
just, like,
music.
Hanging
They're
out.
just hanging out
Staring.
there. But it's St. Patrick's Day Eve. There are cops stationed all over the city.
That's fair.
And at the time, they just assume maybe they're trying to lay low and catch like drunk drivers or something like that. It's 1990. There was a huge push around that time. But they remember it was odd and
Yeah.
had that memory. They had not been partying that much that evening.
Yeah.
At 1 a.m., 15 minutes later, Richard Abbott opens the door to the outside. Opens it up, hangs outside for a few minutes, and then shuts it. Odd, and something he had never done before. Was it perhaps a signal to potential accomplices hanging outside? Or a bored 23-year-old security guard working the night shift on St. Patrick's Day? The door is closed and locked behind Abbott a few minutes later. That was around 1 a.m. At 1:24 a.m., two Boston police officers show up and press the button to the security door. They press the buzzer and report that they were responding to a disturbance call. Richard Abbott lets them into the first security door and then buzzes them through the second door as well. So
Okay.
a set of doors called a man trap that you can let them into the first door, interrogate them a little bit more
Before you let them
before
in.
you officially let him into the second door. Richard Abbott lets him in through both. Once inside, the cops ask if there's anyone else in the building. Richard Abbott shares that the other guard, Randy Helsted, is out on a round. The cops tell him to radio the other guard to return to the security office. Once that is done, one of the officers looks at Abbott and goes, "Hey, don't I know you? Yeah, I think there might be a warrant out for your arrest. Stand up for a minute." That line successfully gets Abbott to leave the security desk and out of arm's reach of the panic button, the button that would have actually alerted the actual Boston police that there was a robbery going on.
So those two men were the men from the car?
Correct.
Okay.
Or at least that's what's assumed.
Yeah.
Once Randy Helsted, the other guard, returns, they are both told, "Gentlemen, this is a robbery," and handcuffed, duct taped, and brought to the basement of the museum.
Whew.
The robbers will then spend the next 81 minutes robbing the place.
Are there no, well, there's no like external monitoring? I mean, it's the 90s, right? So probably not.
So remember, they're dressed as Boston police officers. There is a camera outside the external security door, but it's grainy. It's 1990.
Yeah.
And it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and there's just like a single overhead light, and they report that they're officers. And so that's the external video, but it's just pointed directly at the sidewalk. And also, it's not like Richard Abbott was staring at a black screen until people were there, right? And so that's the only external monitoring system. And then internally, there's a couple of security cameras that are all being saved to a VHS tape.
Very easy to destroy.
So not to tease out too much, but we're going to pause there on the night and now jump to the next morning. Sunday, March 18th, 1990, the morning guards come in to relieve the night crew, but they can't get in. No one is buzzing them in or answering when they call. They call the chief of security, who comes to the museum and lets them in. They immediately go to the security office, and they can tell shit has gone down.
Yeah.
The office door has been forced open. There's a crowbar propped along the side of the wall.
Oh my
and an
gosh.
empty, intricate, and old picture frame sits on the security seat. And most importantly, there are no night guards to be found.
Oh.
The day shift person they interview says at that time, the chief of security picks up the crowbar, hands it to her, and then steps out to call the police. She realizes she has been handed the crowbar to defend herself because they do not know
who is
in
there.
the building or how long they have been in there
That's
for.
a terrifying realization.
Correct. She has that realization at the same time she realizes her fingerprints are now all over
On the crowbar. Cool.
So she realizes them both at the same time and was like, I'm getting the fuck out of this goddamn building right now. Thank you so much. The police arrive. They start to search the building. Still unsure if the robbers are in the building or what has been taken or where the night guards are.
Yeah.
When they don't find them in the museum itself, they are led to the basement. One police officer tells the day shift guards, if we're going to find a body, it's going to be in the basement. In the basement tunnels of this 1899 museum, they find the night guards tied up. One of the night guards, Richard Abbott, the one that they had let in, is tied up like this. No blood or anything.
Okay.
But they find him like this in the middle of the dark.
Oh.
With tape
Holy
over his eyes.
That's terrifying. There's like tape around like the circumference of his face as well, like as from his like covering his nose and mouth up like over his skull and around the back.
I also want to point out too, and we'll talk about this more later, but Richard Abbott has this long classic hippie hair of 1990s.
Yeah.
And he's also in this photo, you can see still wearing the fanny pack he went to work in and the tie-dye shirt he kept on underneath.
He's wearing like a blue short sleeve like button down and like red pants.
When you think of a person that works at an art history museum,
that's not what I was picturing.
No, you imagine like tweed jacket, things like that,
or
shoulder
at least
patches.
in like a uniform.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this man looks like he just graduated high school.
Yeah.
This is when the documentary first cuts away from the night of the details for the first times and interviews the man who took these photos. And the police photographer says to the camera, as soon as we were taking pictures of them, I thought it was so weird. Why were these guys still alive?
That's fair, yeah.
Dead men tell no tales. And
That's
these
fair, and they
men
had
were
seen
just
them.
Correct.
Yeah,
and
that's
were able
big.
to provide a visual description.
Huh.
When they get to the top floor of the museum, they start to catalog what is gone. 13 paintings in total have been taken. The thieves had to cut several of them out of the frame. They hadn't taken the time to dismount and unscrew the intricate frames they were in. They simply took a knife and around the edge cut out several Rembrandts and veneers.
Whew.
At first, it's assumed that the total amount of loss was around $200 million. They set up a $1 million reward to find the art.
Yeah.
Today, the art's been reappraised and obviously gained in value.
Yeah.
Today, the art is worth $500 million, and the reward for the return of any of it is $10 million.
Are you telling me that the art is still fucking missing?
Yes.
Shut the fuck up. And it's on the wall behind us.
Exactly. And if you want to see it, no, I'm kidding. You'll remember to like and subscribe.
None of the museums would take it.
I actually meant to bury that lead until part 2.
That's fine.
It's okay. I don't think I was going to be able to remember to keep it a secret anyways. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the stolen art that's missing. I'm going to talk about 3 of the paintings specifically.
Is that a Rembrandt?
A couple Rembrandts. So the first one is titled The Concert by Johannes Vermeer.
Sure, can I see
Famous
the name?
Dutch. Johannes Vermeer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what's so cool about the concert? This small painting, slightly more than 2 feet in square diameter, was displayed back to back with Landscape with an Obelisk, another painting that will be stolen, on a small tabletop in the Gardner Museum's magnificent Dutch room. This painting is generally considered to be the rarest and most valuable of all of the lost paintings. At least partly because so few paintings of Johannes Vermeer still exist to the day. The current consensus is 37 paintings from this artist still exist, but scholars have doubts on 3 of them.
Whew.
And this missing one is one of the
them.
37.
Yeah, they don't know
so
what
that
happened to
means
it.
in total there are 33 that we can be like, yep, that's one of his that has survived to this day.
Oh
and it
my
looks like this.
gosh.
The concert.
Oh, yeah.
It's gorgeous stuff.
That's gorgeous, yeah.
The next one is A Lady and Gentleman in Black by Rembrandt. Rembrandt painted many couples, some in very large formats, but the vast majority of these portraits are pendants, 2 separate canvases, each picturing one member, usually of a married couple. A Lady and Gentleman in Black is probably Rembrandt's first double portrait, so both people in the same one.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple of really interesting things. First, the fact that it's over 4 feet high. It's like a giant painting. But also, I want you to look at this painting real quick for a second. Do you notice anything? I'm asking you specifically about the spacing of this photo.
There's a lot of empty space in the top.
Right.
Yeah.
But also in the middle. And
yeah.
before it was stolen, X-rays revealed the outline of a small child boy.
So the child had probably passed, and
Correct.
he was paid to cover it.
Rembrandt first painted all 3 of them and then was paid to take one of
Cover
them
it,
out.
yeah.
There we go.
Can Grant use
I can.
technology?
And then the final one that I'll go into detail about is Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt. This is the one that's most often talked about. It is Rembrandt's only skiscape, also quite large.
Seascape.
What'd I say?
Skiscape.
Great.
I was like, is that what he meant? No, that's a
It's
ship.
one of his only sea paintings, and it's huge. It's so huge that it actually makes the people in it themselves look very small. You have to get kind of close to see it. And if you look close, it's a bunch of people freaking out. And then Jesus in the center, Christ on the storm in the Sea of Galilee.
Ye of little faith.
Correct, is like, I'm fine. But if I could manage to see this guy right here holding onto his hat and the rope, see him?
Yeah.
Rembrandt painted his own face onto one of the disciples.
I love that.
I know. And everyone's like, that makes it even more valuable. See?
Get it? Because it's on the sea.
Ego's worth something eventually.
Can we just talk about how if I was on a ship scared for my life and some asshole said, yo, why the hell are you freaking out? I'd be like, you were asleep for 20 minutes.
Correct.
Before I don't know if it's 20 minutes,
Also-
but also,
You're telling me you have the ability to stop this storm and you're not going to do it? Even if I'm not afraid I'm going to die, it's probably not a pleasant journey.
Yeah.
Kind of an asshole right now.
don't gaslight me out of my feelings.
Exactly. I gave up everything for you.
And that's why we have therapy now.
So those are the 3 most famous, probably most valuable pieces that are missing, but 13 are taken in total. So also stolen was Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by Rembrandt, Landscape with an Obelisk by Govert Flinck, Chez Tortoni by Monet, 5 works on paper by Degas, a bronze eagle finial that was part of Napoleon's army in France and was like on top of one of his flags. An ancient Chinese gu, which is an ancient vase and the oldest thing they stole that night. It dated back to the 12th century BC.
Oh my
It was
god.
thousands of years old.
BC?
Right. So these robbers come in,
Yeah.
snag a whole bunch of stuff. But it's really weird the way they go about doing it.
Yeah.
First, the detectives point out they spend 81 minutes.
That's a long-ass
robbing.
time.
It's a very long time.
Yeah.
And so either they went in knowing they were going to have the time, or they went in having lost track of the time.
Yeah.
Or they went in having a plan to get in and out and then ended up staying way longer than they meant to.
They had to look at all the pieces.
Yeah, or like hadn't realized how hard it would be to get them down and get them out.
Yeah.
And so after the initial shock of what has been taken has like settled and realized and they've like comprehended what they have lost.
Yeah.
They then start to catalog the many like kind of weird and terrible ways the robbery went about. First, the fact that they cut the Rembrandts out of the frame is like a huge no. Obviously for art preservation, but also
Not
in
great.
terms of like art criminality.
Yeah.
You don't want to damage the goods.
You can't do that. The frame is part of the art.
Right. And also, hidden behind the frame, part of the art. It goes end to end and then a little bit more. And also, the phrase, don't damage the goods, comes from robbers.
Interesting. Also, it seems very targeted. They stole a lot of very valuable pieces.
Correct.
Or maybe they took one art history class like me and were like, Rembrandt.
Well, this is the interesting thing.
I know that name.
Some of the stuff they took was really valuable.
And some wasn't.
Some wasn't. Ooh. The Napoleon finial? Not very valuable.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a lot of them.
Correct. Yeah. The Chinese gu, while incredibly old, not super valuable.
Maybe they saw the date.
And since it's a vase, kind of hard to transport in the same way paper is, because how fragile it is and stuff.
Yeah.
There were like several things stolen that was like, oh yeah, like, and it's very sad to see him go. It's not to be like, we don't care about the money, but it's like, if this was truly a smash and grab to get like money, there are things you left behind to take other stuff. Or potentially, one of the other theories, this isn't even in my notes, I just have consumed too much information now. They went in thinking it was going to be bing, bang, boom. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, we can't get these goddamn paintings out of their goddamn frames. And the only reason you're ditching the frames is if you're trying to transport them. Yeah. Which is why someone just in a hurry cut them out. And at that point was like, how much time do we have? We told the boss we'd come back with this. We can't come back with only 3 paintings. Quick, grab some stuff as they run through it. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. Yank, grab that. This looks old vase. That's what, rich people have. Like, grab that. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
But also, 81 minutes is over an hour long.
That's a long time.
Early days, we had episodes that weren't 81 minutes. And so there's actually several weird things that happen the night of the robbery. In one of the rooms, there's a secret tunnel.
Secret tunnel! Secret tunnel!
So there is actually a door.
Through the... Sorry.
No, you're right.
Through the mountain.
Secret tunnel.
Secret.
I'm up here.
Secret.
Surely that can't sound the same as what I'm doing right here.
Secret tunnel.
I can still understand you saying. Tunnel. Singing podcast. Did you know it's actually super easy? Just say the word singing podcast when you have ran out of lines you remember. Things I meant to say at the beginning check-in. We're going to get to the weird things that happened that night. I just gave you a lot of robbery details. Start forming thoughts. I want to tell Maya something real quick. I saw this. Turn and talk amongst yourselves. Miss Warner's here for a second. No, I saw the email. Anyways, so I saw this TikTok this afternoon and goes, damn, some of y'all will be so stressed right now. And it's like, bitch, have you even released your inhibitions?
Release your inhibitions.
When was the last time
feel
you
the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else.
I can't wait to look at an unknowing, unsuspecting child whose care I have been charged with tomorrow, and in their moment of struggle go, girl, you need to release your inhibitions. Babes, feel that rain on your skin. I don't know what else to tell you.
I also want you to know I did not know most of those lyrics when I started singing that song.
Just kind of came one after another.
It really just came to me.
Much like karaoke.
Yes. Does your mother know?
Good. I was like, how long is it going to take to get to ABBA?
Not long.
So let's talk about all of the weird things that happen. Yes. There's first the secret tunnel. So behind one of the paintings is a panel that you push and it leads to a different floor.
Shut the fuck up!
Very few people know about that door and panel, and it's open when the
Now
police
you've
get
just
there.
said it on the podcast.
Well, and, true, and also on many of the episodes in the documentary, they're like, and then here's this door that leads to here, and it's open. How do they know it would be open?
The museum's like, shut up!
Exactly. In fact, the person who said it to the camera was like, and how did they know? And part of me is like, I feel like if I work security at a museum where nothing happened, the first thing I'd tell my friends the first weekend after my first week on the
Guess
job,
what?
there's a secret tunnel! It is the only cool thing
that's
about the Isabella
weird.
Stewart Gardner
Also
Museum.
in the 90s.
Also, I don't know why you don't think a woman who organized boxing matches for her boys to meet bohemians wouldn't put a secret tunnel. It feels very... That's what rich people need to do. Stop trying to buy apps that none of us even want anymore.
Or
and
trying
instead,
to overvalue the apps that you do have to get out of
correct.
your bail.
Or get into weird car companies that are actually super dangerous for the driver.
Or try
and
and
the people on
like
the road.
really get bias in a U.S. election.
Do you know who wouldn't actually have issues with the U.S. capitalist system and the amount of consumption it produces?
Not Jesus.
Raccoons. Okay, so there's a secret tunnel. I think I've hit that point pretty well at this point. It's open when they get there. Also, one of the most important paintings in the entire collection is a Rembrandt, and it's called like Self-Portrait of the Artist. And it's huge. I mean, it's relatively big. It's a gorgeous painting. Even if you don't know anything about painting or art, you look at it and you go, yeah, I bet that's valuable.
Rembrandt was known for his ability to make like fabric look very realistic.
Yeah. Well, in this one, it's like it almost looks like his lips could move and talk.
Yeah.
They're just like
They're
kind
like
of the perfect
photorealistic,
shade.
yeah.
Yes, and his eyes in Portrait of an Artist
Do they
follows
follow
you
you?
around the
Yeah,
room.
I hate that.
So it's no surprise at all that the robbers took it off the wall. Mm-hmm. It's a huge surprise that they then left it without even trying to take off the frame. Which means either
They're like, well, this is just
they
a
ran out of
guy.
time. Yes, either they ran out of time, or I'm not joking, like looking at the pictures, it was stacked up with a bunch of other frames, and I'm like, did they forget it was there? And like, listen, not to give the robbers of the world's most famous art heist any credit, but they're having to do all of this with like flashlights.
Yeah.
So I get like it's not like right there, but I legitimately, my personal theory,
Yeah.
which no one asked for, is that they meant to take it and it ended up in the pile of frames they had gone
Well, it's
through.
men,
and
right?
It's 100% gonna be men.
How hard
Anne
could it
Hawley,
be?
the first museum director. No, obviously not. She
would
seemed lovely.
That would.
That would really set y'all back a little bit.
Yeah, it would.
Men can do any kind of crime without any kind of problems at all whatsoever,
Yeah.
but one of you speaks for all of you. And if you just pulled into the parking lot of the job where a man's going to take credit for your ideas today, I'm sorry for that trigger point.
Yeah, punch your steering wheel a couple of times.
Now here's the part that I think you are going to love, because it feeds in my little conspiracy brain a little bit. There are also motion detectors, but it's early days for this technology. And so all it can really do is clock when someone like moves through one of the triggers, right?
Yeah.
So these motion detectors will notice if you like cross the beam, and it'll send off a little alarm to the system they have set up. And the system records it in two places. It records it on a printout paper that is actively going in the security room.
Good.
It's like that long, never-ending roll of paper.
Yep.
But then because it's the 90s, it is also saved on a primitive hard drive.
Okay.
And I mentioned
Like
that
a
it's the
floppy
90s.
disk?
Yeah, or like
Okay.
some other version.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the fact that it's the early 90s because the thieves who broke in probably didn't realize it was on a hard drive. So we have the log.
Okay,
of
but
when
they
they
took
took
the
down. They took the paper
yeah,
immediately.
I mean,
they took the
obvious.
VHS security tapes.
Obviously.
They didn't know to grab the hard drive log. Exactly. And so we know exactly when things go off. And yep, it shows the alarms going off in like the blue room and things like that. You can kind of even track like when they took some of the paintings and things like that because it's logging times specifically. And then where do I want to pick it up? Most of the art that the robbers ended up stealing was from the second floor in two different rooms. And the alarms and the log reflect that. However, one painting was stolen on the first floor from the blue room. And that alarm went off at 12:27.
Before?
When Richard Abbott was on his rounds through the museum. Doesn't that give you chills a little bit?
Oh my God.
Now, here's the crazy thing about the Blue Room alarm. There's actually 2 crazy facts I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
First, the Blue Room alarm is not set to any specific art piece because it's a smaller room.
And it's blue.
Right. Protection in of itself, favorite color. Sad. The alarm tracks when people enter the room and leave the room. So Richard Abbott's alibi is, I was on my round. You have to walk through the room. And I walked through the room, and that's what the alarm picked up, which is fair.
But there's
the Blue
no
Room
other
didn't pick up anything else that night. And they tried to figure out how they could break into the Blue Room without triggering the alarm in the days after.
And they couldn't?
They couldn't figure it out.
You can't like jump over a beam or something,
So,
Mission Impossible style?
If we're connecting the dots that I've shared in this episode already,
So that means
does Richard Abbott take
stole
the
it.
painting in the Blue Room, hides it in the security office when he takes over?
Is that why the frame was there?
Signals to his friends outside by opening the door that the shift has begun. They collect their things. They get buzzed in. And then the robbery is off. And does his willingness to cooperate, is that the reason why he isn't killed? And neither is Randy.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe he was like an accomplice and that's why he wasn't killed. But that
Right.
doesn't explain why Randy wasn't killed. Well, I guess maybe, yeah. Because then that would make it really obvious that...
So then the next question becomes, so is Richard Abbott a master criminal? Did he steal the painting in the Blue Room before the robbers arrived?
Yeah.
Open the door to signal to the 2 thieves outside that his shift at the security desk had begun, buzzing them not in confusion, but intentionally. Is he contacted by the mob? Does he have a shifty past? Not at all. Richard Abbott was a music school dropout from the Berkeley, Berklee, the one in Boston, is a music school dropout from Berkeley. He parties, he drinks, he gets high, he rocks out with his band in basement college parties. And there are people who in this documentary testify to this, and I think it's awesome. They go, yeah, no, I remember in college, like, partying with Richard. And he'd be like, yeah, man, sorry, I gotta call a car. I gotta go to work. And they'd be like, are you about to go clock in right now? It's like 11:40, he's in a basement partying his ass off.
Yeah.
And he's like, I gotta go guard.
Protect the art.
The art, exactly. No, that's exactly it. And I mean, he shows up to work in a tie-dye shirt and a fanny pack. I mean, he is like, his hair, he's grunge.
He is very grunge.
Richard Abbott will even admit that in the past, he had shown up to work high and drunk. He admits that he'd shown up to work high and drunk in the past. Even if he claims that on the night of the heist, he was sober, I don't think he was a master criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what he wore to work.
Yeah.
Still, elements of his story don't add up or are shockingly negligent. He either was intentionally an accomplice.
Like kind of dumb.
Right,
Yeah.
or accidentally the world's best accomplice because they didn't have to pay him off or anything.
Yeah.
Richard Abbott was never charged with anything, which isn't to say Richard Abbott
It's the 90s.
is ever cleared of anything
Yeah.
either.
I mean, to be fair, this is the 90s, which is like not so far removed from like the free love movement and the like
Sure.
like government movements that like really inspired like the SLA, right? And like cults and stuff. So
Right.
it could be like, I'm such a member of the arts and I detest these kinds of organizations that require us to like charge to
Right.
view artwork and stuff like that.
Well, and Kurt Cobain's super big at the time, so he's
Yeah.
bringing that like grunge, Rage Against the Machine, the authority.
Yeah.
There's the moral majority ruling America at the time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's this counterculture who's failed out of music school and kind of in this counterculture. He had also just put in his notice to quit.
Nice.
It was in one of his last shifts.
Wow.
In 2015, 25 years after the robbery, Richard Abbott gave this interview with National Public Radio.
Okay.
And I have a couple of quotes I want to pull. But first, real quick, before I do, what's the copyright thing around music? Can we play like 15 seconds of it? Can we play 30 seconds of it?
Technically, none.
Okay.
But
But
you
what about
can-
kind of?
You can do like a certain number of seconds before like YouTube and like some of the AI.
We'll pull it down?
Yeah.
I wonder what that number is.
I'll figure it out,
Maybe
or we
fun.
can just link it.
It might be fun to just play as a little musical interlude right here, and you'll see why.
Okay.
So in 2015, he says this about his time as the security guard and the night of the robbery. He goes, most of the guards were either older or they were college students. Nobody there was capable of dealing with actual criminals.
Yeah.
But that night, 2 cops rang the doorbell. They had hats, badges. They looked like cops.
I mean, I would be scared.
And I let them in.
Yeah.
And they handcuffed me to the electrical box for 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was panicking. And then I started singing I Shall Be Released by Bob Dylan. I don't know how long I was singing that damn song for, but it was quite some time.
Aw.
Listener, there's 2 different sets of lyrics I want to pull from Bob Dylan's song, I Shall Be Released. And if you're about to listen to it on Spotify, I'd suggest the Nina Simone version. The first one, and these are the opening lyrics to the song. Mm-hmm. They say everything can be replaced, yet every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light come shining from the west onto the east. Any day now, I shall be released.
Oh.
And then the song ends, not the very, very last lines, but one of the last lines. Standing next to me in this lonely crowd is a man who swears he's not to blame. All day long, I hear him shout so loud, crying out that he was framed. What a really interesting song to sing the moment the art gallery is being robbed.
That you had nothing to do with it.
Richard Abbott ends that interview with NPR saying this. I don't want to be remembered for this alone. I'd like to be remembered for the good things I've done as well. I'm a husband, a father of 2 really cool kids. But they're saying it's like $500 million worth of artwork. And ultimately, I'm the one that made the decision to buzz them in. It's the kind of thing most people don't have to learn to cope with. It's like doing penance. It's always there. In February of this year, 2024, Richard Abbott passed away from natural causes.
No.
He was 57.
Oh. That's rough.
So,
I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I think he had something to do with it.
I mean, I don't know if he was a master criminal, but I
don't think he was a master criminal.
Right.
But I also can't find an explanation for how that painting in the Blue Room...
In my mind, the explanation is someone approaches him after a gig one night, or he drinks and gambles too much or something, and the person who approaches him knows a little too much information, personal information, about loved ones in his life. And they're like, there's a real simple way to make this whole thing go away. One night, 2 police officers are going to come to the door of the place you work at. It's going to look real legit. And you're going to buzz them in. And that's all you got to do, and we'll let you go. And the reason why I think that is because the night before the robbery, Richard Abbott buzzed someone else in.
Oh.
A man later, he said he couldn't recognize, but that when other people were showed the security tape, we're like, oh, everyone knows who that man is. That's deputy of security for the museum.
Oh, so he might have just like... But then how did the painting...
Thought that was the time and buzzed it, and then it wasn't, and then...
But that
Did he get a message then the next day? Did the deputy security give him the message that tomorrow it's coming down? This is me letting you know this is around the time that it's going to happen. Like, there's so much we don't know. Obviously, none of these videos in the 90s are picking up any audio.
Yeah.
You know? And also, and this is such an important thing, too.
I am desperate to know what happens in the Blue Room.
Right?
It just feels... Monet's spinning and barking at Bowser because he has a bone that she wants.
Cute.
It's not.
But no, it's sus.
It's real sus, and it's... We need to stop naming rooms that have creepy shit going down in them after colors. Red room.
Well, because here's the thing, too. So, like, it's the 90s. Like, a malfunction in the system maybe does happen.
Yeah.
Especially if the alarm system has been overwhelmed by like detections in other rooms. Or like it doesn't get saved to the hard drive at a certain point.
That's true.
Maybe the
yeah.
blue room is the last room they hit, and at that point the system had
like,
been
goodbye.
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Andrew Jackson survived an assassination attempt, and the man who tried to kill him had 2 pistols, and both malfunctioned. And after they arrested the man, they looked at the 2 pistols, and they were both perfectly fine and in operating condition.
Yeah, that's fair.
History just happens sometimes in a weird way.
It does feel like it,
but also
it feels like it can't be a coincidence that 2 separate motion detectors, because I'm assuming there's an in and an out.
I think so.
It seems unlikely that it would pick up in and out on all of the other ones, pick up him going in and out, and then fail to pick up both in and out of the robbers. I feel like it would be more likely if there was like one of those 2 missing.
Right. But then I'm also curious though. I mean, I think we're focusing on the fact that the motion detectors didn't pick anything up.
Yeah.
But if we take like half a step back, like what is Richard Abbott's motivation for taking something out of the blue room and potentially exposing that to the other guard, Randy? Who, if Richard Abbott is in on it, is probably like, sure, but then don't kill Randy and I, right? But it's like, you're going to steal something from the blue room, you're going to bring it back to the security desk where your coworker is working at, and you're going to what? Keep it there and hope he doesn't see you have this painting in your like, you know, jacket or whatever as he goes off, when you know for a fact the robbers could just grab it for you as they come through it.
Yeah.
And it's
especially
not
it's not like they were like grab and go, like they weren't on a time crunch.
No, absolutely not. And also, it's not like Richard Abbott ends up with the painting.
Yeah.
You know?
I bet you're right. I bet he was blackmailed at some point.
Potentially, yeah. I think that's the most likely scenario.
And I feel like it's also very likely that he took the painting or like hid it in a dark corner, but knowing that Randy probably wouldn't be like checking every nook and cranny.
Sure.
Because
he took it out, dropped it off somewhere between.
Yeah, and then just like hid it there, and then maybe the robbers dealt with it after that or something like that. But
still, Richard Abbott would have had to been aware of the security system. Although maybe he did and just figured it's all on paper, and they're going to take the logs anyways, and so it'll be totally fine.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it was either a mixture of that and like some like Rage Against the Machine, like fuck the system or whatever,
it's just
like that.
So odd because I mean the 2 guards don't even get beat up. I mean
it is strange.
They chain them up or handcuff them and like duct tape them, and obviously that's going to come up like body aches and stuff.
Yeah.
But they don't beat them up to the point where they pass out. You know,
I think robbers have a tendency to not, like, aside from like personal home invasions, robbers of like banks and like museums and stuff have a tendency away from violence because they're aiming more towards the money, right? So it's it's like the SLA, obviously on a very different scale, but I have seen a lot of stories of this kind of thing where they're not violent people. They don't actually want to hurt anyone. They're in a desperate situation.
Right.
So I'm not personally shocked by the fact that they aren't hurt.
Sure.
I am shocked that they didn't like wear some kind of like gear to like protect their identity. But
so they wore fake mustaches and hats that were pretty low and stuff like that.
Oh my god!
I'm going to show you the police descriptions, and it's both provided by Randy and Richard Abbott, and so it's like both the guards have seen it. But here's also the other thing as well. We're going to talk about this later on, but there's more than one way to break in through a museum.
Yeah.
And to go directly through the security
front
guard
door is
well, not the front door, but the
crazy.
security door
Yeah.
is like pretty brazen.
Yeah.
And requires like observation, blackmail, an assumption that the person you're blackmailing isn't going to blab on you.
Yeah.
Like, if I think blackmail explains, at least in part, it's like a logical theory around Richard Abbott, but then you go up like another step and it's like, well, then what's the mafia or organized crime or whoever it is
blackmailing him,
what's their motivation to blackmail when you could just force entry through like a window or something, kill the 2 guards or beat the crap out of them and get them.
If it isn't organized crime,
correct, and then like completely sever any real connection between you and the people that are going to be there that night and spend as much time as possible. Like, unless you're worried about the panic button. But also, the person who they said, hey, isn't there a warrant out for your arrest? Come here for a second. The only person that can testify to that dialogue, Richard Abbott.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that gets him away from the panic button.
If he came up with that, if that didn't actually happen,
right?
He's a criminal genius.
Yo,
Abso-fucking-lutely.
we are just at the little like tippity-toppity little like tip of this crime.
I love this.
I really was hoping that you were going to enjoy it.
I love
There was like
this.
a single mom who works
With
2
2
jobs. So I have poured hours into like both researching to know what the facts are as they've been presented, and then also my own little theories as I like punch the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, so if not Richard Abbott, who? Here's the next section. Organized crime did it. Duh. Richard Abbott is ultimately ruled out as a main suspect, although never cleared of any wrongdoing. Largely because, and this is now a quote from Wikipedia, and I didn't follow the source for it, but I don't think Wikipedia just came up with it. Quote, Richard Abbott was largely viewed as too incompetent to have pulled this off. But I mean, what a time to be a dumb white man is when you are suspect numero uno in the world's largest art heist.
He's like, yes!
So it becomes pretty clear right away that this was an organized crime, not some crime of opportunity, because how do you have a believable police uniform? How is there 2 of you? There was convincing uniforms, fake mustaches, duct tape, rope, the ability to transport this art out of the museum without being caught. Even the night they chose might have been strategic because police attention was elsewhere in the city. It's St. Patrick's Day. Every cop in the city is either enjoying the holiday because it's Boston or working it. And this is not a like party central neighborhood that the museum is in. So they might have even chosen one specifically because they knew it wasn't going to have the kind of like regular patrols that it was going to have.
Yeah.
So if it was organized, some of the art they took doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yes, they took some incredibly priceless pieces. Some of the pieces stolen were just odd. Like the eagle on the top of Napoleon's flag is like not valuable at all. Like it's kind of cool.
If it was organized crime, you would think that someone somewhere, some grunt would have done the research on these are the 13 most valuable pieces.
Right. Or like, here's what you need to get. Here's like,
where it
laundry
is in the
list.
museum.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not valuable at all. And the old Chinese gu, the old vase, while old and relatively valuable, it's not even as valuable as the painting it's sitting in front of. Like, you know, if you needed
it's not worth the risk.
No, it's not worth the risk. And also not worth enough to be used for like leverage later.
Imagine if they stole it and then it broke like under one of their jackets and then they're just like raining breadcrumbs of like really old ceramic back to their home.
Yes, a little bit. No, like the crime becomes more and more interesting the more you try to figure out why. Like what's the motivation behind it. And that I think ultimately is why it's so hard to prove who did it, where the art is. Although, babes, you know we're going to get into the theories.
Oh, yeah.
I've already spilled that the art is still lost. So if your family in their
if
TV
you look
room
up right now and see a Rembrandt.
The sea, the Christ, the Redeemer on the Sea of Galilee, whatever the thing is. If it looks like people are about to die in a drowning incident, it might be worth about $10 million. More on the black market, but you gotta be able to sell it.
Anyways, the black market.
There's even this Rembrandt portrait of the artist that they took. They took a knife and cut out the big stuff. But the self-portrait of Rembrandt is barely larger than a postcard. And the frame is barely any bigger than that. And someone took it down and then took the time to remove it from the intricate frame it was in. So they cut out the huge painting, but the small, tiny painting, whose whole frame would be easy to transport.
Just fit in a pocket.
Correct. That's the frame they dismantled and left behind. Instead of just taking the whole thing.
For why?
Exactly. They didn't even cut that one. The police were confused why they didn't just take the frame and save the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can either get out there sooner or get more work.
Yeah.
And the biggest pieces are so well known that there would be no real way to sell them without immediately flagging the entire system. They would be immediately recognized.
Yeah.
And so then, okay, this isn't just some petty art thief who's going to sell it to some unknowing rich person to get a lot of money, and then that rich person later can deal with the consequences. They stole huge names in the art industry.
Yeah.
And so, a huge name, huge crime. Sure, the crime was probably organized, but one of the first theories that comes out, make sure I'm in the right place. Yes. Is that maybe the artwork was going to be used to fund international terrorism. This was a huge part of my research today. I was like, where and when do I introduce this detail? So,
I'm sorry, what?
specifically, that they were going to use the paintings to help fund the Irish Republican Army.
Oh my
the
God.
IRA. So for those of you who do not know, the Irish Republican Army, a long history, not going to necessarily get into it. In the 90s, before Bill Clinton helps craft the Good Friday Agreement, there is political tension between the Republic of Ireland, which you guys know as Ireland, and Northern Ireland,
Yeah.
which is part of the United Kingdom. Specifically, there was a hard border, and the Irish Republican Army didn't like a hard border dividing the people of Ireland. So much so, they committed a handful of bombings and assassinations.
Super fun.
In an act many would regard as terrorism. But I'm not here to get into some of those more detailed specifics. I'm talking about their art heists. See, there is a connection between Boston and Ireland, specifically the IRA, and it's an infamous mob boss, Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was one of the most powerful crime bosses in Boston during the era, heading up the Winter Hill Gang. He denied any involvement and, in fact, dispatched his subordinates afterwards to identify the culprits of the robbery, because the robbery was committed kind of in his turf. He either wanted credit or he wanted to know who was running the game in his territory. Or at least that's what he shares.
Yeah.
FBI agent Thomas McShane investigated Bulger to determine his involvement. Everyone's Irish.
Nice.
And if they're not Irish, they're Italian and their name's Bobby. That's part 2. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so general, but they got to a point in my research, I'm like, his name's also Bobby?
And her name's Anne. It's Bobby and Anne.
Exactly. No, but for reals, I had to kind of go back and triple check a couple of names.
who,
Because I was like, no goddamn way this is the 4th Bobby I've been introduced to in this episode. There's going to be certain times during this episode where I just do last names because first names aren't helping anybody. I'm like, Mr. Donatello, and it's like, he's not your 4th grade reading teacher. He's a mob boss, but he's the 8th Bobby, Billy of the story.
How
Anyways,
much longer do you think you have in part 1? Okay, we should. You want to
another 30 minutes or so at least.
You want to take a break and refresh drinks
I would love that so
and
much.
go to the bathroom.
Okay, so we're pausing as everyone's like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? We are pausing right at the Whitey Bulger connection.
Yes.
And I've just introduced FBI agent Thomas McShane.
McShane.
We'll be back,
We'll be
y'all.
back.
I'm going, though.
Yeah.
I thought you said pause for 2 seconds.
Pause when he comes
Oh,
back.
gotcha. Cool. Okay.
Are we recording?
Yes, I think so, yeah. I just put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so we gotta go. Kidding. Okay, so I just introduced FBI agent Thomas McShane before the break. We're back to it, okay? He investigated Bulger to determine his involvement in the crime. He determined that Bulger's strong ties with the Boston police could explain how the thieves acquired such realistic-looking police uniforms to pull off the heists. Bulger also had ties to the Irish Republican Army. So McShane also identified tripping the fire alarm as a calling card of the IRA. And also one of its...
God, I forgot the fire alarm went off.
Right.
Wow,
At the
okay.
top.
Yeah.
And no one answered how or why.
Yeah.
And the only person that turns it off is Richard Abbott
Is
at the
Abbott,
start.
yeah.
So it's something that the IRA did. Also, the IRA has agents in Boston at the time and had previously demonstrated the capability to organize art heists. Additionally, Boston's close ties to Ireland had helped shuttle supplies to the IRA in the past. Ultimately, Agent McShane's investigation of Bulger and the IRA did not produce any evidence to tie the two of them to the theft.
Okay.
According to Charlie Hill, though, a retired art and antiquities investigator for Scotland Yard out of London, Bulger gave the Gardner works to the IRA, and they are most likely in Ireland.
Oh my God.
So there's all of these different rumors going around,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, so they're in Ireland, or it's in a Russian oligarch's like mansion, or it's in the Middle East.
Yeah.
They get tips about it being in Japan, South America,
Jeez.
Australia, and like Asia, China, the Middle East.
Like the art being there?
Yes,
Okay,
like they're
yeah.
being told like it's all connected to these places. And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why that makes sense. First, you have to have the resources to pull it off. Robbing fine art is like kind of takes a special kind of criminal.
It's like a niche. Yeah,
Right, exactly.
criminality.
There's other things you could rob, like banks and armored trucks, but to rob art specifically then assumes that you have connections to a black market network that would be
will buy
willing to
the
sell
art.
it, or live a life that would require a high price bargaining chip to get you out of jail scot-free.
And at least some knowledge of art somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also just like, how do you get it through everything? How do you get it verified?
Yeah.
Or because of how well known this art was,
Yeah.
it's either like it could also be a person who has the resources to pull it off and does not actually need to make a profit off of the crime.
Right.
That's a person that could pull it off and then just own 13
Art,
pieces
yeah,
of art.
yeah.
And if you're a billionaire with giant houses everywhere, you could have your own private art collection, and in the back
No
there's a
one would
room
need to know.
that you only show certain people and you can control, and it just becomes this thing that you have, and it's your sign that you're king of the universe or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
men will literally steal art before pay taxes. Jeff
Yes.
Bezos.
Donald. Donnie, sweetie. Yes.
And this also then also raises the question of like, you know, in 1990, the reward money is set at $1 million, and then it's set at $5 million, and then it's raised to $10 million. Huge amounts of money for like an average run-of-the-mill, right?
Person,
Like local
yeah,
street
yeah.
offender. And also, not only is that a ton of money, but if you're a local kind of like street criminal at the bottom of your organized crime pyramid,
Yeah.
and you get picked up for like a drug charge or like assault or
and
battery,
you can get $10 million?
or at the very
out
least
of jail.
out of jail, you
Yeah.
can be like, oh, if you promise not to charge me with anything, I'll tell you what happened on the night of the Gardner robbery. I mean, Boston's
Yeah.
big, but also Boston's small.
Yeah.
You know? And so why hasn't the money turned up?
Yeah.
The art. Why hasn't the ability to get out of prison turned it up?
yeah.
Like, why haven't we seen it floated around on the black market?
Oh.
Are you familiar with a phrase that was really popular amongst like theater kids and like neoliberals in the mid 2000s? Think globally, act locally. Have you heard
Yes.
that before? I want you to do that for art crime in the 90s for a second.
What
Because
the fuck?
there's obviously all these like crazy international conspiracy theories. The hints and tips pour in at the start, as they do with all major crimes like this.
Yes.
But the Boston police, the state police, and the FBI focus in on a crime that happened roughly a year and a half before the Gardner Museum. We're going to jump back down now to July 1988 in the town of Yarmouth, which is in South Massachusetts on Cape Cod, like the little hook that comes around it.
Pretty
right?
sure Yarmouth is also where Maria Martin was theoretically stored, not stored, on the Isle of Wight.
Oh,
or in
God.
Suffolk.
Okay, so one name for all of these Englanders / New
Yeah,
Englanders.
I
So the town of Yarmouth, in the Cape Cod region of Massachusetts, there is a small, beautiful, and intricate little art museum called the Bangs Howlett House Museum. And in July of 1988, robbers went through the back door, overpowered the elderly female caretaker
Aw.
of the museum. Didn't kill her, just
Okay.
like overwhelmed her. Then stole several items, including 6 portraits, 200 pieces of scrimshaw, which is when you take a whale's like teeth and bones and like carve artwork into it. You know, the kind of thing a museum on Cape Cod might have, almost always made from whalers on whaling expeditions. So they steal 6 portraits, 200 pieces of scrimshaw, and a Chinese vase from the 13th century.
Oh my god. Also, side note, if you're a cop, no, you're not. Or someone that cares about this deeply, When my aunt died on my mom's side.
The way I had no idea what was going to come next after that sentence. Go ahead. I'm here now, though.
When my aunt died on my mom's side, we had to go through all of her stuff, right?
Right.
And so I got a bunch of like her jewelry, and I was with my mom going through that apartment, and there was there's one piece that I have. That when I opened it, when I was going through her stuff at the apartment, I was like, oh, this is cool. It kind of looks like a tooth, and then there's like carvings into the side of it. So it looks like a caravan or something, like of elephants or camels or whatever. And it's on like this gold chain. And I like gave it to my mom. There's a sticky note on it. It's written in Japanese. And I was like, what does it say? And she said, oh, this says that this is genuine ivory.
Oh, okay. So, kind of a hot piece of jewelry right now. Is that what you're saying?
And I was like, excellent, it's mine now.
Also on the thread of things we found after a loved one died.
Yes.
And I hate to treat this story the way it is.
Yeah.
But my parents, my mom specifically, going through my grandmother's estate has been a treasure trove of precious memories and hilarious, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
The story's funny, but content warning does involve animal loss in it. So skip forward 30 seconds if you need to. They found a letter that my sister had written when she was like 5 or maybe even younger. I don't know ages for it now.
Yeah.
5, 4, like 3, kindergarten, preschool age. Okay?
2, 1.
Right, exactly. Fetus.
12 months, 11
Amy Coney
months.
Barrett.
Yeah.
She had drawn like some like happy people on it, and she'd written this note. And this note was, "Dear Grandpa, I can't wait to." And now I'm like, I can't wait to see you at the farm. I'm excited to see the new kittens. I'm sorry to die. Love."
I'm sorry.
You know, kids just don't know how to handle death that way, and it's like kittens.
I'm
and she had
sorry
never-
to die.
I'm sorry, 2 kittens die.
Oh.
I'm excited to see the kittens. I'm sorry, 2 of them are dead. And it's just funny because one, it's like a 5-year-old writes that and then draws like a sun below it. But then it's also funny because my 95-year-old grandmother had it in like an attic somewhere, you know? She really did love us.
Sweet.
Like, she absolutely loved us. And also, like, what a charming note to now have in our family group chat. Because of course mom like takes a picture and sends it.
Yes. To die.
Let's talk about art again.
Yes.
for a little
Art.
bit. Nice.
Art.
I was hoping you were going to do Seal. She's in Massachusetts. Let us transport you to Massachusetts. Now do a transatlantic seal. I love that no bit is too ridiculous. Okay, so 1988. This house in Yarmouth, this house museum gets robbed,
Yes.
sharing some shocking similarities to the things that they had robbed out of the Gardner Museum.
Someone thinks that Chinese vases are inherently valuable.
Correct. Enter Massachusetts' most infamous art thief, a man by the name of Miles Connor. Miles Connor, famous art thief, born in Massachusetts, talented, charismatic, eccentric. I honestly really do think here at the start, and I realize the irony of this, I really do think Miles Connor and Isabella Stewart Gardner would have gotten along. They both loved art. They both loved fighting. They both kind of weird road people, I think, to a certain degree. Like, there's kind of a beauty in those souls finding each other, potentially, at the Gardner Museum. Anyways, charismatic, eccentric. He was known to have, like, either a pet cougar or pet leopard or ocelot with him at times in his late teens or early 20s. He'd bring it to bars late at night like a dog.
There's a dog that kept coming to our college bar that was a Irish wolfhound.
Oh, those things are huge and kind of smelly, right? Because of all the hair.
It wasn't. I mean, it's not smellier than the bar itself.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He would just like sit behind his owner though, and you would just like kind of walk in and you wouldn't see him, and then you'd look over and there's this like massive fucking dog
Just staring at everybody.
He was super chill, but it was like.
So, Miles Connor, right? Famous art thief. To quote Miles Connor himself, quote, "Some people consider me an art thief because I robbed a number of museums. But then again, I was a rock and roll guy. End of quote. That was his explanation for his actions.
I'm a rock and roll guy.
The news reported at the time, and I kind of love it, to be completely honest, when the news kind of loses its pants for a criminal. Like,
Yes.
not actual criminals,
Yes.
right? And, like, stealing art is bad. But, like, Miles Connor, they were just... He got, like, kind of Bonnie and Clyde treatment. Here's what one newspaper at the time said of criminal and famous art thief Miles Connor.
Yeah.
And I quote, "A doctor's knowledge of human anatomy and a philosopher's mind. Gross in why? Or at least gross in how?"
Yeah. What?
One, just anatomy, human anatomy. Like, why? Gross. That's gross. Second,
Yeah.
what test are you running for philosopher's mind on it all? Oh, is it that he really liked art because he stole it?
There's something romantic about an art thief.
I mean, at least he has a hobby, right? Like, at least he has a job, right? Like,
And it's not as, like, ick-inducing as, like, fraud. But it is theoretically a quote-unquote victimless crime.
it's a pretty sexy victimless crime, except for, what's this right here? Miles Connor
no.
got in several shootouts with the police,
Never mind.
shooting one police officer. But don't worry, he was also shot in that shootout. He actually was shot a couple times, and at least during one surgery, experienced the whole thing without any anesthesia. He also had his own band.
Rock and roll guy. Don't you forget.
Miles Connor's male family members, his dad, his grandpa, his brother, and his brother-in-law, 3 of them became state police officers. A 4th one became a Catholic priest. And Miles Connor used to like to say, "Where did they go wrong?"
Yeah.
Here's a picture of Miles Connor when he's like 19, 20 years old, with a baby alligator in his hand.
That can't be an alligator. I know it looks like an alligator. There's no way in hell that's an alligator.
I mean, what else would it be?
Some other reptile. A small alligator.
You're right, a caiman. Like really,
Yeah.
that's an alligator. Also,
He's
I
a
kind of get
looker.
it.
Yeah, I
kind
get
of
it.
like. Listen, if you're gonna commit crimes, you gotta be hot.
Especially if you're gonna do a sexy crime.
We have talked all the time about America's problems. We didn't make them. We just call them like we see them. Miles Connor spelled his name with a Y. I don't know how much you know with that. I know Myles, but kind of a looker, at least in his early days.
Yeah, and he's holding a guitar and a crocodile.
And you know he's good with his hands because he uses them to thieve.
And play guitar.
So
Rant.
that does seem legitimately cool, which probably goes along with being a huge art thief as well.
Nice.
As one article liked to say, quote, this is now about Miles Connor. They did a profile on him at one point.
I love that.
They're like, the world's greatest art thief is alive and well and still casing the joint. Why are you giving him good publicity? He's like admitted to a lot of these crimes.
There's a show that I used to watch with my mom. I think it was called, like, what, White Collar?
With Matt Boner?
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like that character had to have been based off of
100%,
this
a little
guy.
bit.
Yeah.
He's just like way too interesting of a person, and like you can
Yeah.
even tell in the documentary series they were like, I mean,
Look at him.
it was Miles Connor, you know?
Look
What I
at
mean?
that, cool.
Okay, so a little bit more about Miles Connor, Massachusetts' most infamous art thief, who was alive at the time of the robbery.
Yeah.
Born in Milton, Massachusetts, Miles
Nice.
Connor was one of Massachusetts' original rock and roll wild men. When he wasn't in prison, and sometimes even when he was, he'd
what?
gig by backing up bands, so like would join in and
Yeah.
help play, that often included members of the Sha-Na-Na. He quickly graduated to robbing art museums, staged dramatic escapes from jail, and
Nice.
at 23 wounded a state police captain during a rooftop shootout that also left Miles himself with a few bullet holes. Now here's where it starts to get a little interesting about
Yeah.
Miles Connor. Years before the robbery at the Gardner Museum, Miles Connor had orchestrated a different heist, his most famous robbery, at least that he's admitted to.
Yeah.
A crime he once described as the art theft version of performing at Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Hall?
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
I wasn't
It's
sure if
just
I
a
was wrong.
wild fucking comparison.
It was also the simplest. In the middle of the afternoon, he walked into the MFA, the Museum of
Yeah.
Fine Arts, and walked out with a Rembrandt.
Shut the fuck up.
Later, when Connor was arrested for different charges, he made a deal with law enforcement. He'd give them a stolen Rembrandt in exchange for lowering his sentence. A deal the state police took and was carried out by Connor's friend and old pal, Al Dotali, who was a lawyer, but also had a job of managing the road tours of Dionne Warwick and Frank Sinatra. Miles Connor's friend, who helped negotiate the return of the Rembrandt to free Miles Connor,
is
did that
lawyer.
in between Frank Sinatra and Dionne Warwick sets.
Yeah, that's
fact,
super casual.
You know how you just have to end up like kind of cutting some cool side stuff because you've had too much side stuff?
Both of these people could have entire episodes.
Years later, Al Dotali, in an interview, shared a story that the FBI told him at one point.
Yeah.
And they goes, well, because of your connections to Connor and all these other criminals, we had to always be tailing you. And it was a fight in the FBI agency as to who got to tail you because you got to
go to concerts.
Right, you said you would eat the best meals, you would travel the world, you stayed at the nicest hotels, and every night you heard Dionne Warwick or Frank Sinatra play. It was like to tail him was like the dream gig. And he was
I would
friends
die happy if someone who
just a year on the road with Al Dotali.
Yeah, but also like if you were like essentially related to criminals, and so the FBI is like bringing you in to investigate you, and they're like, by the way,
I kind of love this too, and I think you just see this in history sometimes. These kind of people find each other. Like Miles Connor is Massachusetts' most infamous art thief who stole a Rembrandt in the middle of the day. And he's the second most interesting guy in his friend group.
Yeah,
you know?
that's wild to me. Also, have you seen the guy on TikTok that did a reverse art heist?
No.
He put his own art into a museum.
I'm going to steal the wall space next to the Declaration of Independence. It's like, is that like the idea?
He found an empty wall and like he snuck in his art. And then, like, had this fake, like, plate that had his name and, like, description of the art and just stuck it on. He had all the, like,
How long does it
adhesive ready.
stay? Have you seen that TikTok video of someone took their glasses at an art museum and put them down on the floor, like, against the wall, and then took a couple steps back and stared at it, and other people joined, and then by the time he was able to leave the group, they were treating it as an art exhibit. I love that. Some people are like, art's dead, art's dumb, art's bad because of that. I'm like,
Art could be anything.
Art could be anything, and that's cool and liberated, and shut up and like unwad your panties. But anyways, sorry, we're back to Miles Connor and all of his cool friends. So, with the help of Frank Sinatra's road manager,
Yeah, what the fuck?
Miles Connor had managed to do two things. Proven, first off, that law enforcement was willing to negotiate in exchange for precious artwork. And second, that he was talented and well-connected enough to steal a Rembrandt. And so, in the days immediately after the Stuart Gardner Museum art heist, Boston police focused on suspect number one, Miles Connor. Unfortunately, they knew exactly where he was.
Uh-oh. Was it jail?
Federal prison.
Ah, nice.
Where he had been for years.
But was he there?
And so, I just like to think, as Richard Abbott sang in the basement of the Gardner Museum the night of the theft. They say everything can be replaced, yet every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light coming, shining from the west onto the east. Any day now, I shall be released. And that's the end of part one.
Shut the fuck up.
Part
that
one.
was so good.
A Night at the Museum. And then this is where the Nina Simone version of I Shall Be Released plays in for 10 seconds.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Before, that's...
Yeah, that seems
It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Do for the art. You know? So that's part one. What time is it? Yeah. That's part one.
Damn.
Thank you.
That's wild.
I know.
I have so many thoughts.
Good. Because really, and I hate to say it, but the entire first episode was about laying groundwork.
And I'm so glad that we're also recording on Friday.
So you can find out what happens soon?
Well, that I also won't forget any of the crazy-ass thoughts happening
Fire
in my
alarm,
head.
Blue Room.
I know.
The robbery in 1988. Who's connected to it? Where do they get the uniforms?
Wow.
I know. Stay with us.
It's now canon in my head that Matt Bomer's character is based off of this
It
guy.
is Miles Connor,
Yeah.
and Miles Connor is Matt Bomer.
I'm not even going to look it up. I don't want to know the truth.
Miles Connor seems like a pretty hard-hitting Irish-Italian Boston, Massachusetts guy. I don't think he's a perfectly
From
coiffed,
Boston.
tall gay man like Matt Bomer is, but,
Okay, but Matt Bomer,
one can dream.
I don't think he's gay in that show.
Also, what a name to not change.
I was watching Jon Stewart because he's been doing Monday nights on The Daily Show.
Yeah,
I watched his this past week, and he's like bitching about how the news is like, we can't give Donald Trump more airtime, like that's what he wants,
Right.
and then how they're covering every fucking move of Donald Trump through the goddamn crowd. They're like, and he's turning on California Street.
He fell asleep in court again.
Yeah. And Jon Stewart's like, the only person having a reasonable reaction to this trial is Donald Trump falling asleep in his own trial.
I haven't seen any of Jon Stewart's coverage. Now we're just talking about criminals, I think,
Yeah.
here at the end.
Yeah.
But one of them was testimony from jury selection, and Trump's team, trying to disqualify those who don't like Trump, had to read off one person's tweet, and it was like he called him like a cunt orangutan with a dead ferret on the top of his head. Something treason, something traitor. And then Trump's lawyer was like,
Super chill.
would you say that is reflective of your opinions of my client? And the juror had to say, I'm going to let the tweet speak for itself.
Wait, that's so funny.
My favorite part about this whole kind of jury process right now is that to do their job properly, Trump's defense team has to disqualify people who have openly expressed personal opinions that are negative of former
Donald
President
Trump,
Trump,
yeah.
which means they have to read them out loud in
Front
of Trump. And then also in front of Trump be like, do you regret those? And then have all these Americans be like, no, I do not regret it at all.
Then Jon Stewart has this surprise guest on that's like one of his earlier correspondents, I think. And so it's like a big surprise, but she's like, stop. We need to have our fun somehow. The first witness is named, I think it's like David Pecker.
Good. Oh, that's
The Hush Money
funny.
trial with a porn star? Pecker.
Is the other
Love
two
it.
names? Oh, what are those James Bond names? Pussy Galore. That was one of them. You didn't
don't
know that
what
as
you're
one of the
talking
James
about.
Bond names? Yeah. So you know how there's always like a sexy woman, a
Always.
foxy Cleopatra character,
Yes.
right? Well, one of them's name was called Galore.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. You know what? So for years, I thought the name was fun, and then I finally became gay enough that I was like, oh, it's like a drag name.
Yeah.
But heterosexual. So,
Anyway.
I'm curious here. We're back to the episode for just half a second.
Yes.
Who do you think did it? And why do you think they did it? And where do you think the art went? Right here, halfway through the story.
Truly, I have no fucking idea.
Good.
I do believe a friend Dick, if you will, Richard, definitely had something to do with it.
Okay.
I don't know if he's innocent in terms of stealing the art. I think he knows more than he's letting on, and I think maybe he's held true to that to this day to protect
Sure.
himself or someone he loves. I wouldn't be surprised if the art thief guy, what's his name?
Miles Connor.
I'm very bad with names. Miles Connor. I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved somehow.
Okay.
I don't think he personally did it. He could be a consultant, if you will, helping case the joint or something. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's the mob or the IRA. I would be surprised in that it feels very not planned.
Interesting.
I feel like there should be more thoughts. Or I also wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know who the art thief is, if they already have buyers.
Right.
And that's why the art selection is so random. It's because like these are
they've
already decided what they want, and that's why it's like, well, why the fuck did you?
It's like watching a beautiful minds of a person who's seen too much true crime action.
Yeah.
Her hands kind of keep moving and like dragging things to the center. She's like, well, if I click and drag this and then this, that makes a beautiful case right there.
It's true. I don't know. Or it could be some random ass third party that no one expects. You never know.
Personally, at the start of this episode, thought it was the ghost of Isabella Stewart Gardner because they put it in air conditioning, and she told them not to touch anything.
She's like, hey, I won't burn down the whole place.
Exactly. I'm just going to ruin a couple of priceless babies.
That I spent a lot of time
And that I have told you, if you even move to a different room, I will set this place on fire.
Honestly, I like that idea. The best.
It's a ghost.
I actually hope it's her husband, the one that like loves her so
Jack.
dearly. Yeah, Jack. He's just like, my wife said
these.
not to.
Listen, if she would stop making out with all those weird poets from Prague, she'd be so pissed right now, but I'll just do it for her.
But God damn it.
And just in case you're wondering what jump you missed, we're talking about ghosts right now. We are talking about ghosts.
Or her sons.
What I am really looking forward to, because obviously this episode will get published in a couple weeks, I'm looking forward to the fun little interlude period of 6.5 days from when this episode gets published before part 2 gets published. Obviously, I can't tell you what to do. I think you're going to enjoy the ride more if you wait a week and do not search anything and just kind of spiral. And as you spiral, write in. Well, I laughed on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook.
Phenomenal transition.
Or you can reach us by email at welllaughedpod@gmail.com.
Yes.
And programming has been made possible by viewers like you. Join the Patreon. Any last words?
I already know what my story is going to be. I have done no research, but there will be a part 3, which means that we might not have a listener episode this week. But if you have a story for in the bag, please still feel free to send it in. Maybe my story will be shorter and we'll cover some at the end, or we'll cover it in Patreon, or we'll just cover it at a later date. So please still send in your stories because we love them.
Call us the city of Alexandria because we are building an impressive library.
Yeah, we are. Every time I get a new email, I'm like, yes, more knowledge.
Google Doc, because I'm a Google Doc boy. Google Doc right away.
Spreadsheet.
All right. Bye, friends.
Okay, bye.
Bye.